degree. I figured the only thing in college worth pursuing was, philosophy at the time for me. So,
Mm.
Beautiful.
but that's what they tell you though when you're doing that to like you're never gonna get a job. I just laugh.
Yeah, they do.
And that's just to steer you away from it. And yeah, it's funny. I got a lot of good stuff out of that. It's just stepping stone though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a liberal arts education as well.
Yeah,
Big
we're ready and dialed in over here, Todd. Whenever you're ready.
cool, yes.
Yeah, we're live. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the freshest slice of delicious divination. At 25, is this the 25th? I think so.
Not take it first.
We've got the quadricity. Was that what it would be? I don't know. We've got the four elements. We've got Barry, Sine Waves, Nathan, Navreet, and Caitlin, and Todd, of course. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Hi.
So we've been talking offline about the some books and eyesight, and I'm just going to share this book real quick so everyone can take a look because it's pretty fascinating. It's called Better Eyesight Without Glasses, and by W.H. Bates, M.D. I think that means medical doctor, but it's a cool book. You might not need glasses, actually. But yeah.
Does it tell you to eat carrots?
I'm sorry?
Does it tell you to eat carrots?
Probably. I didn't read that part yet.
Right? Are you thinking of the foods that represent certain body parts? Right?
Right. I remember just growing up as a
The
kid.
doctrine.
Yeah, like this myth, if don't eat your carrots. I mean, they're good for your eyesight. They help you, so eat them all up. I like carrots.
What if
I didn't
what
need like,
if the carrots have pesticides?
yeah. The real ones probably aren't orange either. They're like the natives. They're probably more browns, yellows, whites.
Yeah.
Now food
Purple.
color.
They're crazy because you think they're carrots, or well, they are carrots, and they're like white, and you eat them, and they taste just like carrots, but they don't look. They're purple, orange, white, and yellow.
Yeah, they're so tasty though. They're so much more packed with actual real carrot flavor. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I love them.
I don't know if they make your eyesight better. I'll be quite honest about that, but it's more. It seems to be more about your muscles. And in this book, he talks about mental exercises to sort of practice your eyesight as well.
That's cool.
But yeah.
I can share more about the psychology of tears in the eyes at some point if you're interested, because that is one area that I've helped people in sessions with.
It's good stuff.
That's
Yeah, I'd like
interesting.
to do that, Nathan. And Todd, if you're done with that, I
Yeah.
mean that sounds pretty awesome there though.
Yeah, whatever you want.
So hi everybody listening, I'm Nathan Navarrete, and I nourish people with deeper awareness by collaborating with consciousness and inspiration so that you can live a pleasurable life, clearly giving your unique self to the world today. And one of the whats of what I do is the Bodytalk System, which is like the foundation of Evolve Care Solution sessions that also includes different systems. In the Bodytalk System, we're communicating with your unique self-design, your innate wisdom, that which has, been guiding you your whole life. And it can communicate to us through different protocols and procedure of recursion, what the priorities are. And so it addresses the various domains of the body-mind complex, meaning physical, vital, mental, supramental, bliss body, right? Those are terms that are used in Vedic literature. Also, Amit Goswami, his book, The Quantum Doctor. And so like Aristotle and different people have talked about downward causation, the movement from consciousness into matter, which has also been communicated in great detail in Samkhya yogic philosophy. And so what downward causation is basically saying is that there is a natural hierarchy in the way that consciousness is unfolding into matter. And yeah, we could, say that it's going the other way as well. Yet consciousness will have a higher influence on matter than vice versa. And this is why people go to physical biochemical strategies, or massage or chiropractor, and they get an adjustment, and then they got to keep on going back. Well, that's because the energy is contracted. It's keeping the muscles in the spine, contracted. And why is the energy contracted? Because the mind is contracted in the sense of the belief systems. And this is all the work of Bruce Lipton and the biology of belief and psychoneuroimmunology, which sees the links between the belief systems and the fears and the phobias that create the energy distortions in the meridians, which are governing and basically feeding and nourishing the physical body. So when we look at the eyes, we're basically, and Barry, you can probably riff off this if you want, because it's really about the phrases we use in our language that sometimes is just commonplace, like seeing truth, avoiding truth, vision, avoidance, really anything. What we learn in the Bodytalk system is if there's a breakdown in any part of the body mind, whether that's organ, endocrine, body parts, meridians, beliefs, family systems, we could basically say outrageous pain or lack of awareness. And that's not always to the fault of the individual, and this will tie in later to what we'll talk about of the card of the day, and the transit, which is really about multi-generational family trauma, and how that can actually be epigenetically passed down through the lineages. So with the eyes, it could be not seeing truth, or facing truth, or blurred perception, or not having a vision for one's life. Um, you know, it could go really deep into the eyes, needing purification. Phrases like blind faith, you know. Um, so there's all these different kind of phrases we use in our wording, and how that shows up of how does the eye express itself. And we were talking about Dr. Tom Cowan, Cowan, and he talks about, as do a lot of other second tier body mind doctors who are kind of moved beyond just the biochemical, recognizing that the biochemical processes are pretty slow, and consciousness is instantaneous as far as being a solution when addressing healthcare solutions and problems and issues. And he's saying, the eyes are basically like it's liquid crystal, and it's all about the coherence of the water and what actually structures water. So then we get into, different products like Dr. Patrick Flanagan, who created Mega Hydrate, and Crystal Energy is the other one that makes water structured and coherent. And then you're getting into things like Shungite, which can structure water. And then on Dr. Tom Cowan's website, there's I think it's from like Ibiza or somewhere, but it's different whirlpools that are in the ocean that uh, plankton or something that is like in the bottom of the vortex that they extract out, and you just put like a drop of that in your water, and it remineralizes the water, just like how Shilajit, because we're constantly the bowel movements and peeing, we're peeing out and getting rid of a lot of the minerals. And so Shilajit would be one way that you introduce that diversity of minerals back into the body, and then also this, distilled water from these vortices that are basically like almost a homeopathic, right? It's like a 1 to 100 ratio. The actual substance is not in it, but the vital body, right, blueprint of it is there. So that's just a little take on water and being a liquid crystal and vision and eyes.
What about tears? Different kinds of tears.
Yeah, and then the tears is a whole other spectrum, because that's getting into the psychology of tears. And what we yeah, and so crying is not just like, we're not just crying when we cry. It's actually going to be filtered through the state of consciousness we're at, the worldview or the meme, which ties back into previous talks we've had about spiral dynamics.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great share, man.
You're welcome.
It's funny how you mentioned the meridian of the body. I mean, it's such a vital area, and that if you just imagine like a line, we have right at the top of that, vertical standing up line, these two little dots which represent the eyes in the front, and then it would go to a single dot behind the meridian. So it's like a pole with like things in front of it and back of it, and like this light matrix at the top is really, it's like a Y, like a two turn into one. So like
Right.
this entire whatever we're in, we're filtering duality or polarity into singularity, into linearity, so we can, arrange linear thoughts and be in time essentially, because that would be, the nature of time. Time is, well, I guess different kinds of time, but we're in linear time where we can't go back to yesterday from this position right here, in 1031. We can't go to 1030, that we can forget about it and, release and live in the now, and in a sense go into states where that day isn't seemingly there. And then, but in a basic sense, we're making time, creating time, and the eyes are, like you said, that liquid crystal matrix. It's such a fascinating, you know, I mean, it's really deep because it's like a veil. I mean, it's such a, because the things we see, aren't necessarily, because it's up to us, it's up to the viewer, the seer, to put the interpretation or the meaning behind really the whole thing, to give it a story.
Which will
Um,
be influenced by the worldview, the filters.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's like the automatic thing people can don if don't really know what to do. You just kind of don mass consciousness, and you're stuck in the way the world kind of sees these things until you can, overpower it through little self glitches, and get out of that, you know, really mundane, offering the same thing kind of field of thought. And it's a powerful field. So really it's learning, like, this little piece of magnetism is becoming very strong, and learning to separate from this. This field is ultimately much stronger than you, but you as an individual piece can become so strong. You can learn how to make your body, your vehicle of consciousness, not interact with that field, and it kind of drops out per se and connects to the larger field that your local field is sitting in itself and nourishing itself with. So the eye can do that, right? Because when we look at things, you're either looking, we're looking in spheres, like worlds of knowledge. Like, you can look out into a forest, and a person in this real local, literal visual field would just, we have trees, we have leaves, grasses, the wind's blowing, you have all these things that are building this story in this slice of time from this perspective. And then you take, the next being with a different, the same eyeballs, somebody who puts their socks on one at a time just like everybody else, all of a sudden they see the trees, but they see these other worlds on top of it as well. They see them as living beings. They see an even larger circle that we all participate in, as the energy that impregnates everything, kind of that batteries not included, mindset where you've got, the battery and then you've got the body of consciousness or the space and the there's just those worlds, those spheres get bigger, so it's almost like the eyeball gets bigger, right? Like it just keeps growing. You've eventually got this single eye, this large eye, and where it's a collection of pretty much if you think about it, the further you went out from this little logical bubble that this mass consciousness world lives in, this is just a tiny little blip bubble in a very large, larger single eye somewhere. And, this is impregnable, it's penetratable, and, it's also very, you know, difficult per se to learn to tame all these energies, to learn to tame the visual field and to overcome that what you've been told something is, right? Because that's where the fallacy kind of lies in mass consciousness is people kind of let the world or things outside of them interpret the visual field for them, and then they build
Yep.
their frame of reference based upon that, and you end up, because we're all blank slates, I mean, so you end up with kind of this program running, and but you've got nodes, you've got lighthouses that are real creative beings that didn't take their blank slate. Well, they ran it through that, but they overcame that program, and all of a sudden they're kind of like a freelancer within the program. So, and it becomes creative, right? So then you can walk into the forest and you've got worlds of information at your fingertips. Everything you look at, you don't just see a leaf, you see the way the veins structure off in a leaf match the same pattern as lightning. And, you start seeing this world of fractals that's much larger and penetrating you just start seeing bigger worlds of patterns, and you learn to step out of those little local fields and really this is all from the eye. The eye makes this all possible, the ability to reflect. So big tangent there. I mean, appreciate it, Nathan. And
Yeah.
Mercury supposed to represent this, Loki, the things you see.
Mm.
So Mercury is essentially the that which is seen, that which is on your mind, the now, that which you're thinking about, that's that which you're pursuing, that which has your interest, that which has captured you. So, and that's I think in the unique design how they get really your measurements on who and what you represent and are is I think the prior Mercury cycle to your birth. So they take an 88-day lapse from the second you're pretty much born, run it backwards, and that's your 88 days of things you're built upon. This because we're in the world of what you see, right? So obviously, one of the most powerful sciences in this system would be a science based upon Mercury cycles. And if we're going to entail meaning and structure here in Mercury's world, it's, you know, probably smart to really look at its cycles and start from there. I mean, you always want to start from the world you're in because Mercury isn't the center itself, but if you place yourself as Mercury, which is the story, I think, of the kind of that high Buddha mind, that like that pure self ego state where it's not this Aries fire egoic leader, just full gas pedals down. It's kind of almost that opposite, that Libra cardinal air, just that your space is getting bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden these little bubbles that used to overtake you, that used to overpower you, you've just made those into tiny little bubbles within your much larger area of space now. You go out, right? When something bothers you, one way to not have it bother you is to go out, right? Make that thing that's not bothering you kind of infolded into a black hole, and it's make it infinitely smaller, and eventually it becomes invisible, and it's almost like you eat it and swallow it. So you can do that in your consciousness, and easily overcome things and regain your power back and your ability of self, because in the end that's really what we're training, is the self. That's the whole point of this entire thing, is to know thyself. We want to use this beautiful situation that we find ourselves in to, the real treasures are the eternal self, and everything you can discover and know about the self, because we're essentially inside light. We are the light that, whatever grand man, whatever creator we're working with here, we're its inner light and its mind. So we're like this inside light in the story of Golgotha, where like the sun as the eyeball, things are streaming in. I was talking with Amy this morning, and like imagine something like an X-ray flare, which we have hitting us today. We just had one burst a couple days ago, first one in a while. Imagine an X-ray flare as just the ability for light, the real light, to completely line up, to have all these ducks in a row, and boom, it hits us right here. And that's essentially what an X-ray flare is unfiltered. It'd be like God looking its sun in the eyes without any kind of shade, right? So that's how that would be, like an X-ray for it to us, because it's direct, unfiltered, raw light. Like essentially the creator keeps the real light outside, it filters it through itself, and we're in this creative expressive world within it, giving it life. And think about this: when you're a demonic energy, when you're inside of a host, you you're smart enough as that demonic energy, when you're feeding off of it, to not kill it, right? You don't go for the organs and the kill shots, because if that host dies, you die. So it's almost like that demonic energy can turn as an angel essentially and end up helping the host instead. So it can either, it's essentially, it can make its food all the things that shouldn't be in the creator itself. And it can be the transmuter. It can be like its gallbladder, its ability to take on anything and pop out this little squirt of green acid. And that's what we're, we're gonna, anything you got to throw at me in here, we have the ability to transmute it, and we're gonna make that our food, not your actual beautiful parts of yourself. Like imagine the raping and pillaging of the earth as us eating the wrong food, right? Maybe we are supposed to eat up all the things that is fear and essentially sickness and disease. We're supposed to consume that and devour it, and transmute it essentially. And when we do that, that keeps the grand creator healthy, right? It keeps it healthy, joyful, expressive, knowing thyself, and its inner body is connected with its outer body. And we will know that this is a successful situation when we can 100% are in live communication with everything happening inside of our body. So, like right now, you don't go tell your stomach what to do. It's just doing its job. It's keeping you awesome. I mean, you can throw anything in there and it does a pretty good job of making something out of nothing. If you look at this world, seeing as most people don't have real food, I mean, it's kind of a miracle system we got going on inside. um, but so I mean, it's a light, inner light versus outer light. The eye, really, we really bow down. That eye is that crystal, right? That, like you said, liquid crystal. I mean, and it's probably etheric liquid, like some kind of, the thing we breathe, the stuff the bird flies in is a liquid, right? So they're swimming, and we're
Yeah,
breathing,
like
we're breathing.
Nassim Haramein of the Resonance Foundation calls it the fluid dynamics.
Ah, tell me a little more on that. Does he use something like an etheric force as an unseen
So
fluid that?
basically, like it's like plasma, it's not space, but it's literally when he's done talks at the Body Talk conference, and I have a video of him talking about it, that the plasma, the water plasma or the fluid dynamics goes into a substructure vortices that basically is going through the cytoskeleton of the tissue in our body, in I think it was the meninges in the brain. So like a wave propagation, if there's a tube and there's energy going through it, it basically speeds up when it goes through that tube. So it's
Ah,
the fluid dynamics is going into these um tubes, of the body. Like the cytoskeleton is one structure they've identified, and then it's creating a water plasma, which is basically the way that the brain is, that having its antennae function with the field.
hmm. And the neck is almost that bottleneck point where you get some serious fluid dynamics. I mean, you've got the eye too. Those are both necks per se. They're these pinch points where you have to take this world of information, cram it down through into this tiny, I guess, centrifuge and area. And it's funny because everything in our system spirals. And it's almost like when things bottleneck, when they slow down, when they enter time, they spiral into it. So it's kind of like that eye, if you think about it, everything that you see is essentially spiraling into you. It's coming to a stop in front of you. It's but its tail, and its place that it's coming from is this long arcing spiral where it's all kind of meeting up and creating this entire reality of essentially polarity. It's where you got these two opposing forces, making this entire realm right here, and something's visible.
We could
Uh,
say that's another form of communication too.
mhm.
So I heard you talk about Mercury. So even, Alex Gray's artwork, for example, show these spirals going from the field into the body of, depicting the nadis and the chakras, which are all vortices. So really, this is all a form of communication.
Right,
Um,
each center would be able to be receiving, different wavelengths and frequencies of spirals coming in, almost like all of these different realms kind of smashing into this point and making this standing wave, which is neat because if you think about it, how do you attract all of these fields and forces to you? The mind and the heart are essentially, and the gut, those three systems are very central, to how you resonate. And you were just talking about this, Nathan, that what you stand for, if you see truth in the world, this affects the body that you're wearing. Essentially, like
yeah,
you have the blockages, or everything that's going on inside of you is a representation of that which you're holding on to and living
there
in.
we go. That's the main point I notice with, Dr. Gabor Mate in his book I mentioned last time, When the Body Says No, is basically presenting his case for psychoneuroimmunology.
Mhm.
And so when I heard you say that, there's the blank slates, I personally don't believe there are blank slates, because there's the epigenetic effect to it.
Okay,
So
okay.
so what we learn in Body Talk and, various other leading, edge biologists are saying that the the degree and the depth and the duration of a body function is mirrored to the degree, depth, and duration of awareness.
Mhm.
So if there's a breakdown, and so Dr. Gabor Mate gives all these cases where people start off with just a functional body mind, right? And then they go through these different things, different degrees of repression. It's basically what it comes down to. It's like the depth and degree and duration of the repression will reflect the depth and degree and duration of the actual function. And
Think of what
so,
we're doing now in society with all the pressures and,
right,
all things going on. It's literally going to fracture people's body living systems. They're going to be, very jumbled up, very, broken down, needing lots of repairs. It's just obviously going to funnel more money into the corrupt industry that's, not helping people to begin with. Because people are going to obviously want to feel better, and not be in pain, and they. I mean, why be in labor trying to walk upstairs, or why not be able to walk through the forest and go enjoy this system and this plane? I mean, we're coming to a point where more than half of our population is very sick, like very bad. It's consciously held. And we're looking at, I mean, like the Armageddon Revelation things that are playing out are essentially a destruction of consciousness. Like that's what's dying right now. And you can see the people that have built their entire consciousness structure on those paradigms. Obviously, a lot of them aren't doing good. Some are dropping like flies, where others are getting stronger, right? So you've got a certain percentage of people where all of these tests and things that are going on, their consciousness, it still doesn't have them in fear. And it's like a virus situation where if it doesn't kill it, what it's trying to attack, it's only going to make, it's like you gave your position away now. So now it's stronger.
a
So
mind virus,
right. So there's
perception virus, a distorted perception.
right. So those that were without fear before this, that are still without fear right now, are getting very strong. Because if you can do things like take away all of their visual things, like their job, their money, their senses of security, literally putting peoples and families on the streets coming up and like trying to do some of these moves that they're going to do, these people are just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
And,
I,
it's
oh,
awesome. Go ahead. You're good. You're
I
good.
just gotta say, I threatened someone's security yesterday at Goodwill.
Oh,
Um,
man.
where you can donate your trash.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, go ahead. We've been doing.
Um, I just cleaned out my parents' bathroom closet. Well,
Oh,
because I think I don't know, I just got the aha to do it. I can explain more. That's about my I was in the mother phase of my menstrual cycle because there's 4 phases. And so I was like, I'm in the mood to nourish others. So anyways, I got a bag of trash. Because that's what you donate at Goodwill. And we pull up to the line, and I have the thought in my head, well, I'm a manifesting generator, and Ross says that manifestors or projectors don't wait in line.
wow, fucking
So,
hate.
and I'm like, well, I'm really trying to make it a habit not to be a slave here because my ancestors were tricked into slavery when they came to America.
Mhm.
So I just pulled off to the side. I got out of line and I walk up to the cart, and this guy who's working there is helping some mother and her daughters unload their trash. And I just got one bag. I just put it in their blue cart. He's like, "Oh, excuse me, excuse me." And I start walking away, but then I'm like halfway to my car and I'm like, "Okay, I'll stop and listen to what he has to say." And I just let him say his piece, but it was so interesting to just observe how uh I'd say he felt upset, how
You broke the rules.
I broke the rules. Yeah, I broke the rules. Um to drop off one bag. And I think what was really funny to me or interesting was he's like, the reason why he wanted me to wait in line for one bag was because they have scales on either side of the garage to let them know how many bags of trash per day Goodwill receives, so that they can go ahead and virtue signal in their ads and say, we save blah, blah, blah tons from going to the landfill every day. And we support people with their hoarding addictions so they can keep buying trash.
And we've been on a trillion off selling your trash
Right.
to you, so you
So-
can bring it.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because I was resonating with what you're saying, Barry, about the other people getting stronger. And that was like maybe a litmus test for me of, I've been saying, no, I don't make good slave material. I choose not to be a slave. And so universe is like, well, then we're going to give you these situations in your life and you're going to let us know if you're actually serious about not being a slave, Caitlin. So
Right.
I'm like, here you go, universe. I'm telling you, I'm doing it. I'm not a slave. I'm a unique self. I came here with a destiny, and I didn't come here to forfeit that.
Right, right. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, we're going to throw you through all these tests, and the Watcher's watching you, and then at the end, all the other ones go home, and you get pulled to the side, and that's just yourself. That's your own being. I mean, how much would it suck to go away from this experience and realize you just held yourself back, or there was so much more that you wanted to do that you just missed. And it wasn't because things were good or bad. It was, because it really comes down to your unique self, and things that you missed out on are due to yourself. You were able to get distracted by this, this, and this, or, I mean, it's all essentially this giant testing of self, like this finding of self. And I don't know. I mean, I think this is why I'm so hard on like the gut mind nowadays, the intuition, is because I haven't always been the best. Like when I try to break off and just be real Aries and, human and foot in the gas pedal, like it runs me into freaking walls pretty hard. So, but if I'm calm, and instead of trying to guess what the situation means and put all this human meaning on it, I just kind of let it keep speaking to me, and I respond to it through, if I respond to it through calmness and acceptance and trust, I mean, it's always turns out good. I mean, really, it turns out good no matter what for me, because it's even the real rough stuff is killer learning. I mean, it's just in me solid for the next time it comes around, and I learn that way. I'm a very circular learner, and I like to sit with it a while, and I like to see the good and the bad that can come of something. Like, oh yeah, you keep using it like this will happen. Do you really want to do that? And I just go through direct knowledge experiences with like everything, but you have to have that will and to listen to yourself, when you're told the things. Like it's okay to, because really you're not destructible. Like you're this insanely internal energy that is just experiencing itself, which is energy. And nothing out there can truly eternally hurt you. So if you hold that as a central part of your being, like first of all, just like we were talking earlier, you're gonna reflect that in your body. You are gonna have this, you're gonna be fucking indestructible here, because that's what you're reflecting. If you
Your
hold
mindset, yeah, your intention. It's where the way I think of it is, where's our intention and our attention at? And that
right,
is that those two things are pretty primary for what's actually making the coherent water, or the the crappy coagulated water that then the light can't get through, the communication is not able to move through, and then you just get buildup, and that becomes your ulcers, and that becomes your
yeah,
aches and pains and your cancers.
Right. Right. It sure does. It's a because you're pulling this all in, and it's a circuit. I mean, your teeth are it's the fuse box in there. Each one of those are a fuse. I mean, this entire system, you're building like a living intention system, and it's that's why our I think episode one, Todd. I mean, we started with intent. I mean, intent is so key because you can trick yourself all day, but in the end, you've got your intent in there that you can't lie. Like what your intent is. It's just undeniably speaking inside of you, the reason that you're doing something. And that really matters because that's essentially how you really make choices is through your intent.
Yeah, I was
Um,
just thinking of choice, and then you said it because I looking at the developmental side of where and when is it that actually a person, the awareness comes in our minds for us to go, oh, I have choice. You know, I can choose to see that I'm a victim of circumstance, and that is all about like the correct knowledge, right? Having
yeah,
awareness of things about epigenetics and learning that we can change mental markers on the DNA without any physical or biochemical means. It's like, whoa, holy shit, you know? I don't have to, I can actually break the family karma that has been, you know, my great grandfather had, you know, eye issues and my parents had eye and now I have to have it because it's just the genetic thing. They got the gene that's defective. It's like all that is outdated. Just Watson and Crick were completely off, missing the mark with that whole thing.
mhm.
And
And
so
that's
yeah,
what keeps it going. Your family has constantly instilled that belief as everybody goes on. Like, look, we've got this. It affects our vision. So it's almost like the markers never get a chance to not be on because it's in and just any family disease situation like that. I know I feel like there's definitely some kind of marrying of worlds. So you're marrying up a system, and it's both like where you left off, right? It's kind of like in a game, if you die, you still got all your gear, but you're gonna pick up where you left off with the experiences. You got a fresh roll. Here you go. And I like how you said it. I mean, it's really not a blank slate per se because energy, right? When something, it's like, how do you get a raw piece of energy that's never experienced anything before, right? I mean, all the energy that we're working with is very intelligent, right? It's pretty much a whore. It's been all around. It's I mean, it's all been through a lot of things, and water too, essentially. The ability or ether, any body of space like this, any holder of time is really this body that has had many versions of this energy in it, essentially. I don't know, it's insane to think about that. Energy is intelligent, right? I mean, it's and where is this all stored? Like, there's from our eyes, we just want to relate these physical things to storing things, but like
the water has a memory of its own and it's programmable and
the
the
membrane.
right,
Yeah.
the hidden messages in water, anybody can read that book or do the experiments yourself of, you know, sound and cymatics, that water is programmable. So all these family inheritances would include things like attitudes, you know, their beliefs,
Oh
their
yeah.
phobias, their behaviors. All of that is programmed in the water, and the epigenetic information from the mental markers feed that. And Dr. Tom Cowan talks about that, where it's like we thought of the DNA as this, you know, two-strand physical substance, but it's actually the water. It's the
Yeah,
water
that's
is actually creating the structure of that. So it's not a biochemical physical thing, it's actually a water plasma.
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome because the DNA is just the how it's powered with the two wires crossing each other, and then it's Amy just said, yeah, the thoughts and the is in the field, around. Yeah, it's not in. It's like I was looking this morning too. If you look at a dartboard, you can see the red center and then the green ring. So you've got, and if you look back on all the Egyptian batteries and you see this symbol a lot with red center, which is an iron core with green copper around it. This is essentially a battery, right? Um, and I was thinking about it. Really, that dartboard is showing you the cross section of our system with the black and white alternating fields of space of color and absorption of color, expression and absorption, expression and absorption. Then it's got red and green moving out. And if you think about it, I think we're in that center green ring with the red bullseye in the very middle, and we're in the Venus copper area around the Mars iron core. So everywhere, and from our perspective, the green lands are where what we call life, right? And then the red would we where it goes back inside, essentially the Mars portions, the infrared, the heat. So you can see that green goes out on the dartboard, and it comes off of the white areas, and the black contains the red. And it's really interesting that Saturn represents green, and Saturn exalts in Libra, which is a sign ruled by Venus. So there's Saturn's most best, where it's done the most work and where it really tries to hone itself into on the peak of this mountain. It puts itself in the green areas of Libra, the night rulership sign of cardinal air, of balance in the air and the space and the mind and water. If we have water as a sac that has cellular memory, I know there's a way to get it out to air in the cube of space. So I imagine if we've got a circular sphere and water molecule that has memory system in it, we've also got this, because space would be measured in cubic feet. So space, we're looking at the cube, the square, where the circle of life, time, that's all the circle. So we've pretty much got square as itself probably has a memory system as well, the air, which is really neat to think about, which is probably the fluidic ether, essentially just a larger fluid cell membrane body. But
What
it's a sphere, maybe, or I don't know. I mean, the platonic solids could come into play on this, but
I noticed the pattern we're talking about is like perception. So it's like the clearer our perception is based on really how coherent the water is, because that's basically determining what we see, and it's also about the clarity of perception in the consciousness. So the clearer perception of our inner power equals our better sight, our insight, and then even transduces down into the eyes, because it seems like it's like lightning. There's the raw power of the light first, and then it gets transduced down into a electrical grid, and then they transduce that down into power lines, and that's got to have another ground, and then it goes into the house, and the house has to be grounded, and it transduces all the way down to the outlet, right? So we
right.
don't blow ourselves up. So um
So that's probably stuff that you're working on with the site stuff you're trying to do, Nathan, is deep clarity, right?
Well, I study, the psychology of tears gets into the more spiritual aspect, because in the Bodytalk system, we're studying all domains of manifestation from consciousness into matter. So that's why they call it whole health care, and that's why I call it evolved care, because we're not just compartmentalized looking at, oh, what's going on with the muscles with the eyes, or what's going on with the energy, and do we got to do reiki. We're looking at the whole enchilada. So with the eyes, it could be about defending against what is seen, in the world, in the family, in the self, having epigenetic inheritance from family of being cynical that could impact our perception, and then the way the eyes are seen. um Crying, the way that we view crying, you know to cry is to admit that I need help, and if I need help, then I'll be seen as weak, right? So these belief systems influence the behavior and the way the tears are able to naturally move out or not, and then get repressed. And the CIA term, they call it blowback, but it's blowback in the body. It's like in Gene Keys, they talk about the shadow, and there's two aspects of that. There's a repressive nature and there's a reactive nature of the shadow. So the repressive nature is like I'm holding back my tears, right? And that can create dysfunction in the water structure in the eye. Or I can be reactive in it where it's almost too much too often, where you can start creating lesions,
Mm.
right, because that like anger, the frustration is so chronically pathological, meaning it's not like adapting to life conditions, that the intensity is just pushing too much energy and you can get these lesions. um other
Right.
things could other things could be like self-deception. In body talk, we learned that if, depending on the severity of a traumatic event, the eye will actually create, like a cataract. And because it doesn't want to, it's trying to protect itself from being something that it saw that was traumatic. So it could be a car accident, so you get a very subtle filter of the eye trying to create this filter and blur its vision because I don't want to see the truth of reality. It's so painful.
Wow.
There's so much grief, there's so much suffering, right? And then you get into extreme aspects of that where you have somebody who's like in Vietnam and they saw someone's body burned alive through Agent Orange, and they have extreme glaucoma or something because they literally cannot go on looking at life because of that experience. But the great news is that, and I've experienced this in sessions where someone will have some kind of issue with the eye, and there's a hydration technique that we use in Body Talk to balance easy water, the fourth phase of water, and it can actually structure that water, and then the issue goes away. The other factor is that the body could bring us to address the active memory, basically meaning that the memory has not been fully emotionally synthesized the way, it functionally could have after the event had happened. You think of like a gazelle running in the savannah or something, tigers chasing it, and then after they're done chase, they just shake it off. They do this kind of recalibration. They just go about their day. They don't spend the next 2 years going like, oh my God, the wind blew. That means that, and they have this association with their amygdala is hypervigilant. So that amygdala, those two pawns at the end of the cingulate gyrus in the amygdala, what you were
Very
talking.
cool.
Yeah, and so in the limbic brain, I thought about that when you were talking about that. Why where those 2 points converge into the central median is that the amygdala is basically also determining what is seen even though it's not actually being seen. Meaning the
Mm.
filter, meaning somebody gets a dog bite when they're young, and then later on in life, they are in another room and they hear a dog barking and they go into fight flight and they have some issue in their body. It could be some intolerance or something. And then they go into the other room and they find out it was just the dog barking on the TV.
That's crazy. So it's like that unseen filter that's there. It's like this storing of memory of essentially an unseen bubble around everything. Like, I mean, everything would have the amygdala would put these around everything and see it in these ways, and it would.
Yep.
That's really neat. Yeah, and because it sends it's converting the two to the one, so it's almost like that central point that all right, we're taking these two things in, and we're
Yep.
bringing it to the one, which is
Yeah.
interesting. If you think about the male XX versus the female XY, it
Yep.
kind of shows you something there. Like you've got the male is almost taking the two in and sending the two out is exactly as it was. Like I don't want to say unchanged, but in another form of duality, it's like an X would be a 2 to a 2, and then the Y is doing the 2 to the 1, like a direct input, and which is interesting because whether you have a female or a male body in this system really dictates how you work with energy. They're just like the two complete opposite spectrums coming in here, or emitting and receiving are opposite, I think, for both male and female. The things Amy can do with her body are much different than the things I can do with my body energetically. And it's, do we both have access to each of those worlds? Sure, but one's a master of that world and the other's a master of this world. It seems like there's two worlds marrying up, making this third world. And it's because I don't know, the woman, she gets so much power from right at the solar plexus inside, right in there at the like center of the entire body. So like in center of the entire meridian. And then the male, it seems like the center, would come in. I don't want to say mental energy, mind energy, but there's a lot of center there for sure. Maybe they both marry in the heart. Maybe the gut mind is the woman, the head mind is the male, and then the heart is the marrying center where they both kind of meet up and create.
Yeah, and so for people wanting to learn more about this is just really interesting because we're talking about perception, and with the amygdala is really kind of a main player that's determining what we see. Also, different nuclei in the thalamus, but it's like the inherent dignity of the tears lost. When we were young, like if we were shamed or punished, like hold back, strong boys and girls don't cry. There's all these little stressors, and they actually end up creating this huge formula that contributes to these breakdowns in the physiology and the function, of the body. And this also connects to the collective of, deformation professional, which is basically the conditioning of the academia to pigeonhole one field of study and compartmentalize all the fields, right? And basically shun the polymath, who is a person who's seeing the interconnection of everything, right? And how it's like this dysfunctional feed forward loop in the society of, we have compartmentalized systems in academia, and we're reinforcing the compartmentalization in the body, right? And it's just, and then a body breaks down. And I think Caitlin can speak more about like, were you open to talk about like the premenstrual?
Yeah. So I'll give context. You can probably tell from my energy, I'm actually like in between two different phases right now. I'm just leaving the energy of the ovulation phase, and with each phase there's a goddess archetype energy that a woman will experience during that time. And
7 days about like the
yeah, about 7 days. So I'm just leaving the mother phase, which I can understand now why a lot of women are like, I love that phase. It's because we're at the peak of our energy, and we have just all this energy, it feels like, to nourish and nurture not only ourselves but others. So I was just meeting my preference for productivity this last week. And what I notice is now I'm going into this premenstrual phase the week before my menstrual cycle, and that's the Enchantress. And I'm starting to learn that that's like, I'm feeling much more withdrawn. So I guess it's more like, if I'm prompted to answer the question, then it's like, yeah, I'll go in. But it's nothing like the mother or even the maiden phase, which is that week after a woman finishes her menstrual cycle, where you're just like, yeah, I'm here to communicate, and I just have this energy to jump in with the conversation. And so I can see how that's totally affected my perception, how I perceive the world. I noticed with the maiden phase, right after menstrual cycle, I was feeling very logical, analytical, making lots of lists and plans. That's like the probably the most ideal time to do budget. And then mother phase was like all about relationships, communication for me, and helping others. And now it's it kind of is like, I feel like as I talk more, I'm just getting even more into this enchantress premenstrual phase where it's time to withdraw, leading me into the menstrual phase, which is the crone goddess. It's this wise old woman. And this is the menstrual phase is actually the most intuitively powerful time for a woman. I mean, I could say that from my personal experience. I've had conversations with my soul. It was so interesting of like, I'm talking to my soul right now, and it's like using full sentences back to me. So there's many insights during that time. And I've just been studying this more because, I mean, females, we need strong awareness of what cycle we're in, because that influences the perception we're going to have during that time. And that's, you know, if you're not aware of that, like, I think during this premenstrual phase, it's very easy to have perceive having lower self-esteem, because there is that need to withdraw. But then we live in this culture, society, what have you, this conditioning. We've been brought up with this conditioning of always work, even working during your menstrual cycle. And that is just so wrong, I've learned. And I think even that blindness of awareness around the female cycle can also contribute to eyesight. And if I'm going even deeper with this, I started wearing glasses when I was 11. I look around, I see almost everyone in my family has glasses. And even one time my grandma, I was at the eye doctor with her, and I was like 8, just trying on the glasses for fun. And she's telling me, one day you're going to have to get glasses. I'm like, no, I'm not. And she says, no, you're going to have to get glasses. So there's like, it's this unconscious family loyalty that I was living out in the family soul, because we all share the same unconscious mind. There's no secrets in a family. Same unconscious mind. So some part of me was like, okay, so this is the patterning. People wear glasses, so I'll wear glasses, because there's this fear, which I'm 25 and I'm waking up to it more and more every day, of this unconscious fear I had of being my unique self and not needing glasses to see the truth. And it is a challenge to talk about it too while I'm living it, because there's more. This unconscious fear of seeing more than family, but also just seeing the trauma that my family has gone through, and noticing the pattern of being afraid to process that grief. So people wear glasses, or they'll get hearing aids because they don't want to see or hear the truth.
Right.
And it's very challenging to realize that you do want to see the truth, that you choose to see the truth, but it's, in a way, it's then like setting new limits within your family soul, because I can never just separate, I can't just like fully break away and say, okay, family soul, I choose not to be a part of you anymore. I will always be a part of this family soul. But it's just a matter of realizing where I end and they begin, and not taking on their stuff anymore. Because I have, and what is also interesting is we're talking about water and perception. I often am curious. I've got heavy water or strong water element in my astrology. My sun sign is Cancer, Leo. My moon is in Scorpio, and my ascending is Pisces. So you got, all 3 of the water elements in there. And there's no doubt about it. I do have a deep sensitivity. So there has, growing up, there has been blurred boundaries. I've experienced blurred vision. It's like the blurred boundaries is creates the blurred vision. And what else am I thinking? Yeah, it's just, it is interesting how that I've just wondered about like me being so strong water element, and not being educated about boundaries from a young age. Has then that put me in a position where I've been like, because I see water as very, it can be receptive and passive too. You could imprint your water with, if you want to go up to your glass of water and say, thank you, water, then the water is going to respond to that outrageous love with outrageous love. But then if you go up to the water and you respond to the water with outrageous pain, the water will respond to you with outrageous pain. So there's this part of waking up is there's this grief around like no one told me how or who I am. I had to learn it myself. And now that I'm learning it myself, it's like it feels like I'm doing damage control right now of going back and updating the conversation with family and even myself and just the people around me of like, okay, I know you have this perception of who you think I am, but this is actually who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very empowering, but at the same time, it's definitely not easy. And I think of the scene in The Matrix where the first one where Neo's like, my eyes hurt. And Morpheus says something of like, well, your eyes hurt because you're finally using them for the first time. You're finally choosing to see. And I think the last thing I'll say is one herbal supplement I've been taking that has been really helpful is it's called the Eyebrite Formula. Dr. Scholes sells it. He's got this book called something about there's no incurable disease. And I got it. I don't know his astrology for sure, but he's got to be like an Aries sun sign because he's like ready to go for war, but going to war for your health. And he's just in the book. I felt inspired because he's just yelling like, I don't care if you're dying. Nobody ever died from having too many herbs. They died from not having enough. And so I went and looked him up. Dr. Scholes, what's his website called? It's called, I'll spell his last name. It's SCHULZE'. And I've done his liver cleanse. That was really cool. But the Eyebrite formula, I take some every day in some tea that I drink. And I've been able to go down in my dosage of contacts. So like the contacts I'm wearing, instead of being at this power, I went down to a lesser power. And excited to check out that book Todd recommended.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I've been using was the earthing band on earthing.com because it's using the negative electrons from the earth. And I put that on my forehead, like over my eyes every night when I sleep. So I'm also getting electrons onto my eyes to receive like a better currency. And you think of currency. Electric currency. So another way I'm choosing to see. Thank you. That's my speech.
Awesome. I just wanted to say real quick on the site. I really thought that's awesome about the cycle where you're on the enchantress phase right now. You just went through kind of that nurturing, like peak energy spot. Did you? And I immediately thought of, okay, you're ovulating. You've pretty much got like this ability to make new life inside of you, and it's really neat how you say that that feels like you're at the peak, right? You've got all this immense, really power inside of you in order to pass out and divvy out, like, oh, you need some, this nourishing ability. And it's like your cup is overflowing. Do you think your cup does it feel like it's over moment?
Oh my gosh, yes. I felt like I could just stay up all night, focusing my attention on other people. And I think what really strengthened it too is I've been following this book called Red Moon by Miranda Gray, who does teachings about the goddess archetypes. And there's a meditation in there. So I did the mother meditation and I repeated affirmations. So I spoke the truth that when I nurture others, I am nurturing myself. And so I think that also played into it, set me up. I set the intention to nurture others. And I did. And what I mean by like when I cleaned out my parents' closet, I was nurturing myself too, because that's a reflection of the family soul. I was thinking that it's just incoherent in that closet, which is a reflection of what's going on internally with them, which can also affect the greater part of the family soul. So I saw that as I had this physical energy, and that was a way for me to contribute to the family soul of cleaning it up. And very important that it wasn't like me overstepping my unique placement in the soul, the family soul, because I also think of the family soul as system. You know, it's a natural hierarchy where the ancestors are bigger than me, and so they're able to give me their power, and the way I can give back to them is, I think I've said this before, but by giving my unique gifts to the world or having children. So for me, that was in alignment to give my unique gifts to the world during that specific time. Like if I were to go and clean out a closet today, that would not be, I'd be going against the flow of nature, because now I'm in the enchantress phase and it's time to, you could also liken it to the season of fall where you're getting ready for winter. It's a different energy than it is in summer where you're doing all these activities, you're active, you're going out. And I think how that also aligned with me too is in the human design system, my son is in gate 27, line 2, which is the gate of caring, and it's the mother archetype. So I did notice it was just really in favor for me, you know, because I already have the mother archetype naturally programmed into my design. And then Mother Nature was like giving me her mother energy. So I put it towards my family soul. And of course, then it helps me too. There's now more coherence I can feel.
That's awesome, Caleb. Perfect. Yeah, that's the enchantress. Do you feel a little bit like where do you see the most self? Is it the opposite of the giving, overflowing stage? Maybe when is that during the menstrual part right there, or is it during the maiden or the enchantress? Where do you find the most like nurturing of self, working your personalness of a woman?
That's a great question. I think, well, what I've noticed is this premenstrual and the menstrual phase can sometimes blur together with the energies of just needing to withdraw and rest. But I think I like, if I'm understanding your question correctly, are you asking like when I feel the most self-connection?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like because I see the ovulation like phase almost as an expression of the woman as a giver or a
Yeah.
nurturer, like overflowing with givingness, and then it's almost like if you're gonna give all the time, a giver has to take, right? So
Yeah.
you know how to organize life and to put it away as well, how to things you keep, you know what I mean? Like that personal spot of energy where okay, I took a lot of these eggs out of this basket. I need to be putting them back in right here because I need to get ready for this next phase for these, situations that are going to need nourishment coming up. Do you find
Yeah,
a storing and you're kind of like building and collecting?
that is a great question. I've noticed, and you have to understand, like, these menstrual cycles are so unique. It's like one extra step that I think a woman has to take if they want to learn their unique self, is that they also have to take into account their menstrual cycle, because again, it affects your perception and even the food that you eat. So there are different foods that I make sure to eat at different times. For example, like I'll eat cranberries on the menstrual phase. It helps with cramps, or blueberries helps with cramps. And what? But there's like it's yeah with the premenstrual phase and transverse phase. Sometimes you can start to experience there's that grief of with the bleeding because your body wanted to have a baby and you didn't, so the body is in a way grieving, and you have to let yourself take time to sit with that grief. So it really is unique. Sometimes I'll feel it the week before, sometimes I'll feel it during. It really depends. It also depends on what I'm choosing to do.
Mhm.
So, before I really started like making sure I just will not do anything on my menstrual cycle, I was still working at places. So there was ignoring like the week going into it. I was still in work mode. I was really in yang mode, like animating the masculine. And so then by the time the period showed up, it's like, dude, you've been ignoring your yin side. And so you're feeling major grief right now, almost a panic feeling.
Mhm.
And now that I've taken time to make sure that I'm not going to be doing anything on my menstrual cycle, I've been starting to feel the grief uh, the week prior to it. And now that I am aware of it, it's much easier to sit with.
Mhm.
Um, but there is something I think when I feel the most in tune with my soul would definitely be the menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
It forces you to just be.
Kind of like a release to let things.
Yes. Release is a great way of putting it. The premenstrual phase is I do start to feel more intuitive during that time. But there's still like this energy that wants to get out. That'll be like, go for a bike ride or do this last minute project before you can't. And I liken it to like farmers, they got to get their harvest in before the winter. It is like that of like, okay, yeah, we're starting to gear up for this resting phase, but first there's still things to do.
Mhm.
And I think I just also want to say, what with my services, what I'm offering is helping women become more consciously aware of their unique yin cycle, because we have been taught to reject that side of us, which is so messed up. Um, and it's
And
dysfunctional.
they've painted that whole entire realm for the woman as like private, dirty, like
Mm.
go take care of go sanitize yourself. Like it's not. It's such a beautifully powerful expression of, our beings essentially. I
Yeah.
mean, through one side of us, through the female in this system, and it's a lot of power to hold. It's a lot to be responsible for, and it's no wonder they trash it. Like they wouldn't want women to figure out, what they have inside of
Mm.
them, what they have access to, because it would be detrimental to the entire paradigm of illusion, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I would hope, like, if places would stop, like businesses would let women have 2 or 3 days off of their menstrual cycle, or I don't know, some new system is going to have to come in, because it's just, how can these women truly observe their menstrual cycle when at these jobs, they have to wear masculine armor energetically, that sometimes they realize or don't realize that they never take it off. You have to animate the masculine at work, then you come home and they don't realize, oh, I'm at home now, I can be more of my yin side, so they keep on that armor, and then they get stuck, like in that, not stuck, but they just become more comfortable in the masculine side.
They keep their defenses up, they keep this pretty much persona or this mass consciousness bubble up, the most ruling bubble.
Yes, and then it's just too much direction and decision making. And I think what I've realized too is, like, okay, I've had incarnations in the past where I was a man. But in this life, I went through my feminist phase of like, oh my god, men are just, they're trying to take away my freedom. And then I woke up, I was like, dude, I'm taking away my own freedom by just making this shit up. But they get you into the feminism with those cool t-shirts. Like one time I made a post about like how I was like, I'm a feminist, and then this company was like, we make feminist t-shirts and we like that you made that post, here's a coupon for our t-shirts. So it's just further reinforcing, like, good for you for being a feminist. And what I was saying now is that I'm not a feminist, I'm a unique gender, I'm a unique configuration of circles and lines. And it's like, why would I hate on men when now I've had a past life regression therapy session where I saw myself as a man? It's like, yeah, I've been both a man and a female. So I've had that time where it was natural for me to animate the masculine most of the time. But now I'm in this life where I chose to be a woman, and I'm learning to animate the feminine. So it's like, I'm here to be shaped and take direction. And that's not to say I don't follow my inner authority. Like, I'm not just gonna, someone come up to me and say, hey, Caitlin, you're animating the feminine, you take direction, go and jump off that cliff. Like, I'm not gonna do that. But if someone comes to me and says, if you talked about this certain subject, well, basically, I'll just give an actual example of Nathan gives me suggestions or will invite me to talk about something or do something. And of course, I always have my inner authority to check in with. But it just feels so nice to surrender to that direction. It's helpful.
I was just going to say that I almost feel like all the men here, like Todd, myself, Nathan, like we're really trying to bring to the table what the true masculine energy in this system ought to look like, ought to reflect as a balanced energy. And it's almost like you're doing the same thing on the woman female side, because I mean it's a marrying, it's a trust, right? You know, as by finding your unique self, what you offer and where you sit in the partnership. And like you said, I've been both in my past, and that helps me in my now, no matter what body, what sex I'm donning, to stay balanced and to bring the true reflection of each sex into the image. And part of being a woman, it just, in my opinion, from is finding an authority, a good direction, right? So like you've put yourself around Nathan, a very trusting, representative of, trying to bring that true, real masculine and energy into this system. That balanced approach, and
it's like you said, I used to be a guy basher and oh blah 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 blah, and right, it's the same thing with men. They pretty much trash the image, mostly turn it into sex and essentially miss that point of support. And what that masculine energy does, it provides direction, it gives guidance, it's affirming, it's helping, because that female, she's got a direct input, like she's got a direct access, to that creative force energy. And by placing a strong, real male energy, a real balanced male, not a super egotistical, just man of this system, like alpha energy, but like a real guiding, light, then it's going to make her bring out, they're both going to just bounce off each other when you get true models of themselves. And, a true woman knows how to select essentially a true man, and vice versa. A true man, isn't looking for that, that woman caught up in just that materialistic mindset. They're looking for, somebody who requires deeper provisions, spiritual provisions, because that's essentially, the man isn't just a provider and things economical or things financial and material. It's very much a provider in courage and confidence and strength, and these archetypes of masculinity that are like no fear, having the ability to face anything, being in the middle of the dark and then emitting light because you're overflowing with essentially confidence in the self and the true, and to the true egoic self that is eternal, and that you're just trying to bring more and more of it online, and you're emanating that here, and that essentially everything around you is only supporting that, making you stronger, because things that are challenges are just going to validate your standing position essentially more. I mean, it's going to strengthen you. And the things that in you and creeping in, they're going to come back. Like they're going to come back, twice as hard, and you're going to get to be twice as strong. You're going to have a shot at it of making a different choice when it comes back around. So, yeah. It's awful. And I mean, I think it takes a lot because if you go the church route and whatnot, they pretty much get the woman in a submissive position. Like no matter what the man says, you listen to him, and man is leader. And essentially, there's a choice being made on the woman's part first before all that happens, and it's selecting the correct leader, selecting the correct sperm that you let impregnate that egg, that because you are the guardian of life, right? Not everything to make it through into the future. It has to go through you. It has to go through the woman. So you're the dictator of what moves forward and what stays behind, which is supremely
yeah, this is a great I love what you're saying, and I just want to say while we're on this topic, that one of my life's work is to help females balance their lines and circles. So that means, balancing your masculine with your feminine, because I believe we do have both. And so if there are any females out there listening who want to learn more about how to optimize the energies of your cycle, because it is great to take direction from males. And then I'm also learning sometimes, definitely during the menstrual cycle, you gotta withdraw, and it's like I'd rather hear a female's voice than a man's voice during that time, because it's just a time of deep sensitivity. So in the chat here, divinatory delineation, I put my information here. I'm on Clarity FM, and invite any females out there who resonate with this and want to learn more to send me a message. I'd love to start the conversation, because it's pleasurable to know your cycle, to know yourself, and use it to, again, optimize your energies and see clearly, see the truth.
It'd be so cool to get in-person retreats going to at some point. It's still
That's
exciting.
a dream of mine. Yeah,
it's like definitely a dream in the to me of at least getting a routine in my life where No, because I'm a big being of hope. Like I like placing something far out in my future, even if it's like a year or two out that I
Yeah.
can look forward to or work towards. And those are the type of events that I enjoy having in my future. Like, oh, no matter how rough this energy is right now, these next 5, 6 months, I mean, I'll get through it. I'm gonna get to June. I'm gonna get to that awesome, week where it's pretty much a men's retreat. We can all just like pour all out there and just kind of do some self healing, help each
Yeah, you
other, and
have the men's retreat while the women have their menstrual cycle retreat. And then
absolutely
if you get to
do a
reunite
combo.
towards the end when there's this new level of energy in the
Mm,
woman after she's had her time to rest. And
yeah, it sounds so freaking awesome. I mean, I'm smiling thinking about it. It's cool.
I believe we could manifest it. We have some conversations going in Florida where we're gonna be using the Soul Tech technology, and yeah, I believe we could manifest that.
yeah, that goes back to, I love the books, the E-Myth books by Michael Gerber. I'm currently on the second one listening to it. But he is talking about like the importance of, he calls it the dreaming room, where you just talk about your dreams, your ambitions. It's really just storytelling. Uh, but that's a right-minded activity, the creative side. But when you speak it out loud to people, one, it helps you refine it. But second, then our left brains are listening to this, our logical minds are listening to us speak what we want to manifest. So then our logical mind starts to help us execute it and find opportunities for us to make this a reality. So this is, right now, we are already taking steps to creating a retreat.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Something that I'd like to weave in, just all the conversation that's culminating is within that perception of the cycle for the females, and just what's going on with the male and the belief systems, and then both, where there's this epigenetic influence and how it goes back to the amygdala. There's two modes in the amygdala. It's called the bis and the bas mode. And I think these are really what determines like the clarity of perception or not, because the bas mode is like a natural response with resolution that can be dealt with, and then the bis mode will activate negative responses from um, the amygdala, hippocampus, the basal ganglia, and then that's what can lead to chronic severe distress. So it's basically like the gas in the brake. And so those two modes can be balanced. Like I can balance those in people, and you can all people that are listening can also balance it through that three brain tapping technique that I've shared before. There's other things like grounding, I think, because inflammation is gonna exacerbate the bis mode, right? Because you're not getting electrons flowed into your body. So touching your bare feet into damp dirt or walking barefoot on the earth is going to help your bas mode. It's going to help you have that currency of electrons in the body that is going to help activate the motivation, the functional behavior that helps suppress any instinctive destructive impulses or painful experiences, because you're coherent, you have electrons. And then the other part of that is the water. If you're drinking fluoride water from a city that's going through 90-degree angled pipes that's destructuring the water, it's going to destructure you as water. So getting some mega hydrate from Phi Sciences, PHI Sciences, you just add that to the water, and it basically goes to a negative ORP for oxidation reductive potential, basically preventing oxidation through the body. I think it's like -600. I have a video where I use the ORP meter and I'm testing different types of water. A megahydrate is a super antioxidant, basically. So when you hear blueberries, it's antioxidant. The anti is the negative scale of the oxidation reduction potential. And the liquid crystal that's also on Phi Sciences makes the water wetter. Is like people are often like, how can water be wetter?
Yeah.
It can be wetter. They have a specific technique. I don't remember off the top of my head that the water tension basically is what they have a different technical term for it, but at the water tension, um, so you got good grounding electrons, you structure the water, check out Dr. Schulze's Eyebrite Formula. You got the earthing mat on your eyes. That homeopathic vortices like plankton ocean water that's on Dr. Collins' site. All of those things combined, just structuring the water and learning about the bis and the bas mode. I feel grief and anger and a little bitterness of like in school. Of course they're gonna teach the people how to do the slave work better and not really always disclose what is beneficial to us, either because they're unaware or it's it could be intentional or unintentional. But I wish that I knew about the bis and bas mode in some way when I was a kid, that I knew that this is the function of the way that this bioform, my body mind operates. Because if I had had that awareness, then I would know when I'm pressing on the gas or the brake, in how I could empower myself and the way that my brain functioned and my perception and how I see the world. And so it kind of goes back to what Caitlin was saying earlier of like damage control. It's like a lot of this where as we start to get more in alignment with our unique self, a lot of it is going back and maturely mourning the desires and the needs that were not met as children or teenage or childhood, without blaming ourselves or another person, and then just recognizing, okay, our parents, our grandparents did not either have access to that information or they themselves experienced a traumatic event where their ability to be a elder and transmit the consciousness to a young kid was compromised in some way. So the great news is that we have solutions for it.
That's awesome. That's great news indeed.
So we can get to the transit part of this. If people are listening, they're like, when are they going to talk about the astrologies? Right now, we did talk about it, but Mercury, the communication, is aligned with the hexagram 32 currently, which is the only thing which endures is change. So it's the hexagram of continuity, and we can tell if we're out of alignment with it right now because it's saying frustration with controls or being controlled, right? And then so with that, it goes into the 4 R's that I think I mentioned before. We have a choice. Like Barry said, the choice is tied to perception. So I can choose to respond. I can choose to react. I can choose to receive, or I can choose to release. Right?
Which one was this?
So I'm talking about Mercury right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Mercury in the transit is aligned with hexagram 32.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so with that hexagram is the fear of failure, right? So this goes back to seeing and perception, right? Failure. Like, I personally do not believe in the concept of failure. I believe that there is only learning, and that this failure or winning is part of this win-lose metric conditioning, from a certain worldview that's kind of perpetuated. It's like, if you're not successful, you're a failure. If you're not a winner, you're a loser. But beyond that is just learning. It's just learning. It's constant learning, in my view. And so the gene keys for the current Mercury transit is, the shadow is this misperception of failure, and the gift is preservation, and then the higher frequency is veneration. So this is interesting because the last time we were talking, this was where the sun was, because we were talking about ancestry and veneration, and here we are talking about it in perception, communication, and that's aligned with Mercury. And where the sun is now is in hexagram 44, and that is not getting stuck in past patterns, cultivating the courage to go forward without having a fear of the past, right? So recognizing our unique self-alignment, looking at any type of, family traumas and stuff that's influencing or compromising our perception, the way we see ourselves and our place in the world. And anybody who wants to kind of get in a little clearer assessment on that, you can go to Dr. Daniel Amen's Know Your Dragons inventory, and that is really supportive to see objectively what different kind of factors are happening in the family and how that contributes to, he's specifically framing it in brain health, mental health. So that 44, Todd, you were sharing, is a powerful master number, and I'd love to hear what your take on that is, if you're open to share.
I gotta find my notes for that, honestly.
Yeah, so while you're doing that, so the shadow of the 44 right now is like interference. So again, back with ancestral grief, family dynamics, and the repressive shadow of that is like distrustful, which could go back to any event in fetal life, childhood. And the reactive shadow of that is the misjudging, and then the gift is like teamwork. Evolutionary we space is what I put in the chat there, or the channel. Like there's a difference between community and unique self symphony, or what Bina Gupta and Barbara Marx Hubbard called evolutionary we space, which is more awareness and more complex than a community. It's basically a bunch of people who are aligned with their unique self design. They know their astrology, their Mayan sign, their gene keys, their human design, what have you, and they're in alignment with it. And you get a bunch of those people together, and now you have this, what Richard Rudd and Gene Keys is calling synarchy, where we all lead together. We're all leading together in a natural hierarchy that's fluid, and it's not like a domination hierarchy, which some, if we're speaking in spiral dynamics terminology, the green meme sometimes wants to have an illusion of like we're all inclusive, but then behind the scenes there's this actual rigid hierarchy of what you can say and what you can't say, right? And that's all the cancel culture that we experience in our society now.
So this is the notes. I just like sharing this. I think it's cool. I think we did talk a little bit about it before. It's by Shwetang Jari. She's I guess, Indian palmistry and astrologist, and she did some numerology stuff that I liked. But so when you have basically duplications or a pattern or a sequence of continued numbers, it just like amplifies the power, so to speak, and you can obviously look at it in however way you want. But so 4 is about turning things into reality, being realistic, practical, very good at converting dreams into realities. Can be a very hard worker. And then, so if it would be 44, it would be like you can basically manifest whatever you want. So it makes the importance of um, determining what your intentions are, right? And then
Yeah.
so that's
There's your retreat, Barry.
Yeah.
Clarified desires.
yeah. And then so like let's say you have 444, that's gonna be like power around you and you're protected, which I could see that's like that's kind of
Right.
like I see it as like multiple levels of cubes. So it's like you've built 4 dimensions that you are able to, you know, maintain. So yeah, you would feel super secure.
We got 444 going on right now. It's Gene Key 44.
Yeah.
The Destiny card is 4 hearts, and then we got us 4.
So that's a lot of thinking and like building like forms. I like to think of that as thought forms, you know.
Yeah.
It's in the word.
Yeah.
It's also interesting. You and Barry, I heard both mention cubes, and when we look at the chestahedron, it's he sits it in the cube, and that's why it's actually placed at the angle that it is in the heart, in the chest. Is it's in that, I forgot specifically what angle it was in, but that's interesting that today is a 4 of hearts, October 31st, is the 4 of hearts. So again, and that's all about home, family, stability, good supply for things that we need, you know, interested in security and stability in our lives. And here we're talking about just family systems and coherence and that inner stability that we need to experience, you know, even if there's chaos and, you know, disorder happening all around us and people are not aligned with themselves. There's, you know, separate self, skin encapsulated ego, as Alan Watts calls it, where the misperception of illusion is creating to all this insanity. It's like we still have this inner coherence, we still have this inner stability no matter what happens.
Yeah, fitting. Wait.
So the four
As you
four
said
can
4
also,
of diamonds, but this is the 4 of hearts.
4 of hearts, yeah.
Maybe
So the
I heard wrong.
So the fours can also be overly security conscious, and this can get into like the pathology of like hoarding.
Yeah.
You know, where you're associating with material things as like security, and it just goes. If anyone has not seen Hoarders on TLC or watched it online, like we love watching it. It's just so you can learn a lot about humanity if you watch it.
Yeah, but it's so gross, man. It's like, ugh.
Oh, it's disturbing.
Yeah.
Oh, Nathan just said we love watching it. I don't. If I love it, it's like a
Learning.
learning from it. But you should just see my face while we're sitting there watching it. My eyes and jaw are just wide open, and I have to remind myself to take a deep breath while I watch the show Hoarders.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I'm like ready to go clean everything I own.
And throw everything away, I bet.
Yeah.
And that's the 4 ties back to the 4, someone who's good at organizing, setting boundaries, establishing foundations, managing, working.
Supportive lessons for a 5. I'm speaking for myself. I don't know about you, Todd. And Barry, you're a 7, so it's that odd number.
Oh, yeah. What are the odds?
Curious if that resonates with you at all.
Yeah, the 7 really does. It comes up pretty much everywhere in my life, and it's for me. I see the 7 as the true self. It's really the highest you can get without collapsing back into the octave, which is kind of the space, I guess, cube there. The 7 represents kind of the mountain or the pinnacle. Lots of sight, lots of vision, cardinal air. You know, there's a lot of air. This tiny little mountain peak of actual land is up here, so there's not a lot of places to land for the bird per se. That's in the air, and then the air itself, the mountain is what is controlling the air through its form of density. It's so you almost control the lightest thing through the heaviest thing.
it's kind of a neat relationship. I see the 7 with a lot of those kind of experiences in life of things that you're building, things that you're putting onto the tropical system, the Capricorn Cancer, North-South system of extension, essentially. It's the building of coming out, the real coming out of something from the inside. So yeah, and the 7 really loves the 2 and it really loves the 4 because if you add either one of those numbers to it, you get the 9 or the 11, which are both, huge aspects of this realm right here. So, I mean, 7-Eleven always open, but yeah, 7 all over, all over it. Every time I ever look in terms of numerology, I end up winding up at a 7 somehow. I mean, before I was even into things, looking back on my life, I had 7s everywhere. I mean, it was my favorite number growing up as a kid. It's all my cards and stuff, 7 club, numbers of 7. I mean, I'm born on April 27th, so, 427. 83 there, and I mean it's 7:04 p.m. at night is when I pop out, so or 7 there, and yeah, so it's all over my energy.
Nice.
You know, but
All
do
right.
some cards. What do you think, Todd?
Uh,
I want to try some.
um,
I want to try doing since we're talking a lot about like vision and I figured if I want to pull a left card, a right card, for the left and the right portions of kind of duality there. And then the third card I flip will be how those two images kind of marry up into this reality, how the left and right are combined into the one. Figured it'd be fun to look at.
okay. Let me tell you guys something.
Okay.
Uh, Hold on. Okay, here we go. So, I don't know if you guys can see this. Maybe you can't. Well, if you're looking at the stream, you can. I've been inputting like some of the things we've been talking about, and I just want to share some interesting numbers with you guys with some of the words.
Okay.
All right. So, um, let's see. Let's start with 22. Well, let's start with 33. 33 is everywhere. 33 is in the word tension. It is in the word emanation. It is in the word dynamic. It is in the word menstrual. I might have spelled it wrong though. It is in the word transduce. It is in the word power. Um, it's also in the word empire and order, which those are from other ones. But I know we talked about 33 a bit.
That's it. Some serious stuff, man.
I love the
Blowback.
gematria.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Blowback gets a English ordinal, which is like the English, like based on English. What would it be? A through Z, right? And then it goes 1 to 20, well, 26. But blowback in English ordinal is 69. Dynamic
Hmm.
is also 69. And
Water.
water gets a Jewish ordinal in 69.
Jeez, huh?
Yeah.
And then is the 69 the Cancer water?
It
Yeah,
is.
could be, yeah. I got a rare. So in the satanic cipher, um, it's pretty rare to find interesting numbers or matches, but we did get a 200. That's the word over. So that would actually be like one of the Hebrew letters. I don't know which one, but you can look up whichever one has the value of 200. But the other one we got was a 420, and that's in the transduce.
Yeah, I love seeing the patterns with the gematria aspect. Thank you for being so organized with that.
Oh, sure. So
I love the organization.
hey, that's what the 4 is about, right? So the last one I'll share, I thought this is pretty cool. Lightning gets an English ordinal value of 100, and transduce gets a Jewish ordinal value of 100. That's pretty wild.
Light is 100. That's because it's got 10 in it. Light 10 in, and then it's 100. That's nuts. It's cool.
Right. Very cool. Um, yeah, so that's cool. I don't know. I like looking at those numbers in that way.
Thanks
So
for sharing that. That's a good. That's pretty neat to see the background, what kind of the numerology behind it.
yeah, right. Um, I can do a card. You want to go and do? I don't have anything ready, so if somebody would like
Okay.
to do
I've
a
been
card,
shuffling. Yeah,
yeah.
I've been shuffling and I've got them all kind of laid out. I mean, I shuffled over 15 minutes and so slowly selected all three.
Okay.
Well, if you want, Todd, instead of me trying to upload the pictures, I'll just mention what the card is and you can just Google a quick image of it or something. It's the Rider deck and it's classic.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to pull the left card first. So the intention behind this here is going to be, once again, we had a lot about the image today in the show, about how the things you see, about the way you form your opinions on the things you see, pretty much build that, Y shape 2 to the 1. Like you've got this, and you're the central node in the middle there. So I want to take like a Y frame card spread and show the 2 as the image or the duality that are making the 1. So the left and the right are sexing together to give you this 1 essentially. So I'm going to start on the left because those are the things first seen, right? We've got the woman is the visible, is the body, is the water. The man is supposed to be the invisible, the provider, in the background, the unseen. He writes the story, but she acts it out, she reflects it. So I'm going to start on the left here. We've got the moon card. What a perfect card for the left and the woman. 18 card. So it's a 9. It's 18 is, of course, life, and the crystal knowledge book there. Forgot the name of it. Yep. Anyways, so the moon card has we've got land and sea animals all looking up to it. And it's funny because the moon has an image of what looks like to be what we call the sun. And it's giving out these little golden sun drops. And you've got the 2 pillars on the left and right, the 2 towers essentially. And what they're calling the moon is in between them. It's giving off the life forces in between. Notice beyond the towers, it's barren. You don't see the color, you don't see the life, but in between the 2 towers, really, which is a bar, right? You've got we were given space. So originally, what happened was you took this bar and you spread it out, and in between the bar, it allowed this life, this field, and this essentially inside to be. The Grand Creator ate, which was through the mouth, which essentially is the moon. So the mouth and the moon are similar. They show the physical substance coming in, essentially to us is the etheric substance, and the moon does have a deep connection, to the ether, to the white, to the Milky Way, it's the smoke and mirror system. You need stuff to play on the smoke and mirrors. That's the batteries not included part. That's the sun, but it's essentially a black sun, right? You've got a white moon and a black sun. This card right here is showing you a lot of color. You got purple, you've got brown, you've got yellow. It's showing you all the elements here that it's producing. Essentially, this is giving you and they all have reverence, right? All the creatures, all the movement. The moon is very much our zodiacal system too. It ties in with Mars. They have a deep relationship, a Moon-Mars relationship, and Mars is the movement, and the moon is what's moving, essentially. So the moon is what you're building, that soul, that body that the spirit's sitting in. Okay, so that's the left. Now, that's one part of your vision. That's the intellect side of the brain. the things you can logically order around, make sense of. And now we're going to flip over the right card. The right card is going to reflect the things you can't see, the creative inside, the providership, that which is marrying that which you see right here. So we've got the Queen of Wands. It's very interesting. The Queen of Wands has a wooden staff, of course, with the life growing out of it in her right hand. She's seated on a throne. She's got the sunflower in the left hand, and so that's very interesting. We have essentially life on both sides, and you see that new life is really that original production, that something from nothing, is this represented by the right here with the new sprouts, and then the expression of life, the color of it, and that its heights of sense and everything is in the left right there, and it's showing you the fruits, right, the sunflowers. So the Queen of the Wands, I have on the right. This is essentially showing, because we have a hidden male aspect of the right, but we pull a queen card on it. So to me, that's balancing it. It's balancing that inner male energy. You've got the black cat sitting right in front to you, which is fitting for Halloween, where we're at right here. Notice the left foot is peeking out of the curtain, which tells me the left side is, and that's, you can see what's grounding. Okay, so what's grounding is being made visible on the left, and essentially, being in the age of Pisces is the feet. We have the left foot visible. The left is the woman, she is the visible one. The right's covered, right? Where you're drawing that power force from, where you're taking it from the earth, that comes up unseen inside in the right. Where it comes out, where you make your stand, that's the left foot right there. That which is visible, that which is reflecting. The two lions in the background right there, we have the color red, indicating Mars relationship right there with a black center pole. We very much have the core right here. So this is that iron core we have with the life surrounding it. So she's got her back to essentially the life pole. That's representing the spine, and when that's like the two kundalini snakes rising up the spine, they kiss to create this trinity effect on top, birthing something new. So golden throne as well on the right. Pretty interesting. So, lots of gold with a white drape, a crown on the head. Very fitting on the right. Oh my God. Also, and how do we tie this all in on the third card? Guess what I pulled? The 15 devil card. So it's pretty powerful right there. So I've got the moon and the Queen of Wands making the image of the devil, and good God, you've got on the devil card the whole Lucifer vision system, the Y, the 2 to the 1, right in the horns. And it's got us bound up. It's showing us that, look, when we do this, when we take those things, when we let that outside have sex, marry up in us and create it can bind us, it can chain us inside, right? You're chained to this. And look, what are you chained to? Essentially, it's a black cube, space, right? It's light contained within space. So when you're adding the left and right together to make one, you're bringing it inside, and you're locking it up to that which you stand for. See the man and the woman in there? These are thoughts, right? These are independent thoughts tied inside, and you essentially are that winged horn creature with the devil sitting on that space, commanding it, being your own, withholder and holder of vision and images. So you're keeping that all inside. And the reason this is considered the devil, it's not greedy in a sense that you're keeping things to yourself, but the devil can be transformed to the Christ when that which is taken and kept is given forth, and the clarity of not holding anything back, sending it just as you received it. That would be the inverse of this energy right here, how you would express it. But we're looking at right here this system, these cards that pulled up, a really powerful explanation of how you take the left and the right and you combine them
inside onto one pillar, one image. You're chained to that, right? Because the chain's right there. This is what you keep. This is what you hold on to, that which you're bringing into the one. So depending upon how good your filter is and how you filter things, you're gonna. This is why hell and heaven is a living hell and a living heaven. You are literally creating it, you're manifesting it in your body. We've talked a lot about it on this episode, how that which you hold in your consciousness is going to reflect in your body. It's a self-reflecting system. So, and it's perfect. What else would you want? You would want something like that in order to not beat around the bush and to get right to the point of knowing thyself. So, awesome card pull.
That was,
I know, right? Yeah, the devil. Yeah, damn, what a good Halloween pull. Yeah. Right, right. Yeah, it's perfect, man. Absolutely.
that's my destiny card, the Queen of Clubs, and then my incarnation cross is the Sphinx. So you got the Queen and the cat.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome.
And I love the foot visible. How we were talking about grounding. That was really interesting to see.
Right, right. I mean, because everything that you're pulling in from that hidden right, you got to complete the circuit. So you've got to take that and stamp it down into a standing wave that's visible. So yeah, and look, it's just a little piece, and it's showing you a true queen. She's not showing her entire egoic self to the world. She's got this tiny little visible breadcrumb down here on the left, which is a gateway or a portal to come find you know, the true queen of the wands, which wands and winds are pretty close right there. An A and an I is the difference in the word. So a wand essentially is controlling the wind, right? So around a center pole, how you cast your spells, right? It's how you and how you cast your spells is how you filter things, right? It's how you what kind of single pole are you forming? How are you turning the two into the one? What are you doing with your why?
Nice. There
Yeah,
we go.
yeah.
Which is really, I love that right there, because knowing our why to me is a good percentage of being in alignment with unique self. And it's interesting that the devil symbology comes in because those horns, the way they're curved, is exactly like the cingulate gyrus in the limbic system, and at the points are the amygdalae.
Oh wow.
So it's all
Crazy.
it's
It's
all
all
in
connected.
alignment. Yeah, and the other thing I thought about with the devil and the word sin, and then it translating to missing the mark, which is basically just meaning misperception. So we have another link right there.
Sin is a 42. Interesting.
And Caitlin pulled some cards over here.
Nice.
Yeah. Did we send it? Okay, so I believe the picture is in the... Oh, as of right now it's in the chat. So I pulled 3 cards
Nice.
from the Elemental Oracle. Because, like I said, I'm in the Enchantress phase, so this seemed in alignment with that, the images. And Nathan invited me to pull 3 cards, one for the masculine, second for feminine, and then the third one is unique gender, unique self.
A unique combination. So the third card on the far right will be the unique combination of lines and circles, which some in like mystical Kabbalah have said that are pre-archetypal. So the lines and the circles feeding the masculine and the feminine, then it's like that transducing process. So we're looking at the polarities, and then the Trinity effect, like Barry said, the integration of both sides.
Yeah, so the first card is card number 43. That one is magic, alchemy. There is magic to be found everywhere if you look for it. You are the magic. Magic is not a miracle, although it can sometimes feel like that. Doubt kills more dreams than failure. Have faith in your ability. Weave together all the disparate pieces. And the word of power for that is magus. I think I'm saying that correctly. Latin. So that's the masculine card.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dick.
Oh, and the element for that is fire and air.
Mm.
So what's interesting to me then is the card I pulled for the feminine is number 3. We went from 43 to 3. And we've got east, which is the direction of beginnings. Worry not, a new dawn is breaking. Let go of the old and embrace the new. Flow forward without heaviness or anxiety. New ways of being are calling to you. Speak up with a clear voice and do not resist change. The word of power for that is the Norse word for east, which is austur.
Mm.
And the element for that is air.
Spell it out.
Yeah, and I'll spell out that word of power. Austur. AUSTR.
The
So then
gold. It's a gold star.
gold
AU is
star.
Foreign star. Yeah, Oster. That's
The
really.
periodic table,
Austur.
yeah, of elements. AU.
That's cool.
Nice.
No.
So then with our
What a cool fucking word.
okay, and then card, the third card for unique self, unique combination of circles and lines. That's card number 26, which is pressure, transformation. You can view pressure as being negative, or you can see it as being a shaper, director, or positive influence. Find a happy medium where you can benefit and not be disadvantaged. The word of power for that is the Norse word for becoming, which is, it's spelled SOEMILIGR. So if I were to try to pronounce that, maybe it'd be Somoliger. No idea yet. And the element for that is air. So all 3 air elements, with the first card also having fire.
And the 4, we posted in there too. The destiny card for today, the 4 of Hearts, is the I think it was the 4 of Cups tarot card.
Yeah.
Yeah, the man has 3 cups and then is refusing the 4th cup being offered. He is satisfied, or for whatever reason not willing to accept a new relationship. And that 4 in the heart, so the heart suit to me is about, it's either ordinary love, which is a strategy of the ego, right? It's a Hallmark card, it's a Harlequin romance novel.
Yeah.
Or it's outrageous love. Yeah, or it's outrageous love with that which moves the sun and the stars and everything. And so with these 3s, I also noticed this movement in relationships. So Robert Masters in the book Transformation Through Intimacy talks about the 3 stages of going from me-centered. It's all about me, right? So you can have 2 people who are skin-encapsulated egos in a trauma bond or in relationships, and it's like it's all about me, and the other person's like, no, it's all about me, and you got that power struggle. And from me-centered it moves to we-centered, where it's like it's about us, but that can also be pathological too, in the sense of like it's our cult of 2 that's taking on the rest of the world, or trying to one up other, couples or something like that, keeping up with the Joneses, all that stuff. And then from we-centered, it can go into being-centered, right? Where each individual is aligned with their unique self. They're giving their unique gifts to the world. They speak from their unique perspective, original thought. And so there's those 3 movements. With David Data in relationships, he talks about the movement from the rigid roles of the, the whole history basically, but really exemplified in the 1950s of breadwinner, homemaker, and there's very specific rigid roles. and then moving into what he calls the second stage in his book, Intimate Communion, where it's a 50-50 kind of, all right, you pick the kids up on this day and I'll do this day, and let's keep it balanced, 50-50 all the time. But then he kind of says, well, if you're on a teeter-totter, you're trying to keep it 50-50 and leveled and balanced all the time, it can become stagnant with no movement and no fun. So from the 50-50, then it moves into intimate communion, which is basically recognizing, for the female, of if you're going into work, knowing when to animate the masculine direction in the decision making, and knowing that when you're done with work, that you're taking off that and you're switching into yin, and vice versa, like knowing when to do the dance, basically, knowing when the partner is animating more masculine and then you switch into your feminine receptive mode, and knowing when you're in decision mode that the other person needs to surrender, so you have polarity, right? Because if you have two people animating masculine, you have two positive ends of the magnet, and they'll depolarize the relationship or the interaction. And Mark Goffney talks about these three stages of role mates. So people coming together out of basically survival conditioning to join genes to create life, and then realizing, like, well, now the kids are all grown up and out of the house, and now what is my role and purpose in life, right? And Eckhart Tolle talks about that, like towards the end of New Earth, where he's like, when people's roles shift and they don't update the conversation with themselves, and they're calling the kids baby, and things they were called from like when they were 6 years old, and their image of the child has not been like updated to the actual present moment.
Right.
So in thinking that they're actually loving them, they're holding this projection onto them, what actually prevents them from seeing them clearly, their unique self. So from role mates, that moves into soulmates, and that movie was exemplified in that film, A Love Story, that I think it was in like the 60s or 70s, which started saying like, hey, this is the time when the men grew their hair out longer and went to Woodstock, and the women, started asserting like their power more. So you had that shift of roles, and there are functional and dysfunctional expressions that played out on that. And then we recognize that soulmates only went so far, actually. And then so Mark Goffney talks about whole mates, where we have different people who are whole mates. You guys probably have examples, but like we watched Jupiter Ascending the other night, and that to me is, they were kind of a whole mate partnership in Trinity and Neo in the Matrix, because they're both looking at a shared horizon.
I've thought
And
about watching that movie.
the Matrix or Jupiter Ascending?
Yeah, Jupiter Ascending.
It's interesting. The Wachowskis have a really interesting thing about thinking that humans are harvested in various ways, but that's
All right.
but yeah, it's a good one. So, but there's different, like Bonnie and Clyde would be a shadow version of like whole mates. Like
Right.
there was a similar cause, but it was a destructive, uh, dysfunctional kind of behavior that they had of killing people. So having having a whole mate partnership, all of that, is about this integration, which goes back to what you're saying, Barry, of the Trinity effect. Right. So this unique self Trinity effect is where we see it diverging right now. We see the super slave, right, where there's like the trans quote unquote human that's genetically altered into a super slave, or that it can integrate into the new human, which is, the unique self alignment empowerment. And I'm just thankful to connect with both of you and everyone on here who's, we're looking at our unique self. And I just invite everybody to keep giving your unique gifts, because that, I think, is what up levels the source code,
Right.
and prevents the super slavery from perpetuating since the days of the Anunnaki.
Right. Yeah. Um, I did have something, but it slipped my mind. I've also thought about watching Bonnie and Clyde, but I didn't watch it yet because I thought they kill people, and I don't go out of my way to watch people get killed as much these days.
It's interesting the way they meet, you know, like when they first meet in the film, you can get a taste of like what whole mate is, but it's gonna manifest based on what meme or the worldview they are on the spiral, right? So if they're in a red meme worldview paradigm, then it's usually like power over it is the theme that the whole mate will be expressed at. Like with Trinity and Neo, it was expressed out of yellow, and even turquoise, because again, those colors oscillate between individual and collective. So yellow's individual and then turquoise is collective, and they had their whole, you know, unique self symphony on Morpheus's ship, where it was like, we're in it to win it, and we're gonna break all the rules that need to be broken, and we're gonna keep all the rules that need to be kept. We're gonna break all the boundaries that need to be broken. We're gonna keep all the boundaries that need to be kept for us to, you know, succeed in our mission, our vision of the shared horizon. You know, this just cause for humanity as a whole and the Earth. But did you want to share, Todd, about what you're something about Halloween related that you mentioned in the chat?
Oh, I think it was just that there was a black cat
Oh, it
on
was
the
something
Queen
about
horns.
it was something about Holly or
Oh,
yeah, Halloween.
I don't know. I'm honestly, I didn't even really research it much. I did listen to some
Kami or Samayan.
yeah, Sam Hain or whatever. Yeah, I really didn't learn anything about it. It was funny because I was talking to Mike 13th Monkey, and I asked if they do Halloween. Well, I asked him if he knew much about Halloween, just out of curiosity. He said they don't even do it over there, and I was like, well, that's kind of funny. And the more I think about the holiday in general, I'm not a huge fan of it because I really don't think giving candy to children is a good idea.
Yeah. We were watching
So,
a video last night on BitChute, and this guy is on the channel Jim Crenshaw's channel. Looks like we're gonna be sharing the link. But this guy is talking. He's giving the history of Halloween, Samhain, of how it's pronounced, and it was just like sounded like dysfunctional purple. You know, you got these people worshiping, probably I think Moloch, the death god, or someone like that.
yeah, I've heard that.
And then they'll go to knocking on doors saying trick or treat, and anyone who heard that phrase trick or treat knew that they're in for nothing good,
Right.
because it was either you give us one of your servants or a member of your family, and we're gonna go sacrifice them for a human sacrifice. And if you don't, then we're going to paint the six-pointed star on your doorstep or
Yeah.
door, and then we're gonna summon the demon to come to your house, and then one of you, there will be death because the demon will kill you.
Jeez.
So it's, yeah. So then once they got their humans for the sacrifice, they then gave them one chance to say, okay, you can go free if you bob for these apples in our cauldron with the water that is boiling.
What?
So, you know, of course people tried, because they're like, I don't want to be sacrificed. And then it's like the effects, what's worse, being sacrificed or your face melting and you losing your eyesight because
Dang.
you put your face in boiling hot water?
That's
And
black magic.
I'm just saying, how many times have I been at fucking school and the teachers are like, okay, kids, it's Halloween time. You're gonna bob for apples. And I gotta tell you something. I bobbed for apples at a Lutheran school, a fucking Christian school, and they're like, we love God. Now do this satanic ritual and bob for apples.
Wow. That's pretty
So
wild.
that's what we learned about Halloween, and we put the, oh yeah, and then they have a giant wicker man, like a statue of wicker, shaped like a man, and they burn it. And that's hilarious to me because that's what they do at Burning Man is they burn that giant man. So people paying all these dollars. What are they involved in at Burning Man? I think I had a friend once who was like, Caitlin, you want to go to Burning Man with me sometime? I said, no, thank you. And now I know why.
Right.
I
So
thought
that's
about
what
it,
I
but
mean.
I don't know if you actually read about it. It sounds miserable. Like you can't. It's not. It's not like a living area, you know. And like,
It's
Yeah.
that.
yeah,
It's
Limited burritos.
yeah.
Right.
It sounds lame. Um. Anyways, you know what's interesting about Burning Man and I mean, all the what you're talking about, it's totally black magic. So
Yeah.
it is the trick that is, you know, we talk about warlocks and such. I mean, it's yeah, black magic. Most people are teaching it to themselves and do it, and I mean, just the very basic physicality aspects of, you know, giving sugar to children, which is, you know, spiking their system, and then they crash, and then, you know, they scream, and, you know, they have a very quick and addictive tendencies. Like, supposedly
Yes.
it's 8 times more addictive to cocaine, and it's very obvious to see that that is way more problematic than the stuff that's illegal, and you know, um, and we just do that. And we do it for all the holidays, and I think that's very odd. It's definitely forcing you into a culture of what, diabetes or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, stop practicing black magic on yourselves.
Right. Stop eating processed foods because the consciousness of that food is then going into you. So you eat something that's got a disconnected consciousness, then your perception is going to be disconnected.
Right, exactly.
So, to move on to bigger and better things, just like the mushroom does by eating the dead and converting it into water.
Yeah, mushrooms are good. Eat some mushrooms. Let's pass out mushrooms and romaine lettuce instead of fucking Snickers. You're not you when you're
Lettuce.
hungry. You eat a Snickers, dude. You're not you when you eat a fucking Snickers.
Right.
So, I got the classic, the mushroom deck. I've been shuffling it for a while. Let me put the camera on. The intention is just showing us what we need to see. And we got the black truffle.
Ooh.
Tuber melanosporum. Let me send you guys a picture. So it looks like a little puff ball made of, I don't know, it looks like it has bark almost. It's kind of weird looking.
That sensuality. That's connecting to the four hearts, that heart suit again, you know? It's like, I believe that we can only experience sensuality through pleasure, and we can only experience pleasure through outrageous love. You know, we can't experience pleasure through ordinary love. You know, we can only experience pseudo pleasure through ordinary love. And that is that self-care, those electrons, structured water, being coherent, allowing the information field to communicate. And Barry, what I heard you say, Amy, aloha Amy, was mentioning about like the field. Where does the where's the information stored? It was interesting because Bruce Lipton talks about the magnetoencephalograph, where it like measures outside of the head, and all these our thoughts and stuff being stored in the field and the Akashic records, and different doctors talking about, well, there's a lot of case studies actually where people are missing like large chunks of their brain, but because we're holograms, right, every piece is contained in the whole, so those people could still have certain functions in their brain even when most of it was like missing or even like liquid.
Wow,
Very fascinating.
that's crazy.
Just eat some mushrooms.
So it's interesting. The card's got orange on it, which in the Jewish one they have orange as Mercury, and we've been talking about Mercury a lot today. So let me read from the book. This is by Lila Dent. She was on a previous episode. Truffles have been historically prized across the world as delicacies and continue to play an important role in haute cuisine. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that word. Worldwide.
Delicious Divinations.
Yeah, exactly. We only feature the most delicious things.
My mouth is watering.
They have been referred to by some as the diamonds of the kitchen. The truffle itself is the fruiting body of a subterranean fungus and therefore is typically found in close association with tree roots. Black truffle asks us to get to the root of our own situation surrounding food and pleasure, and is intimately linked to the second chakra. Are you able to take pleasure in the good things in life without overdoing them, or do you deny yourself what you truly deserve? Black truffle encourages us to seek balance, but also to be good to ourselves when it is appropriate. Everybody needs some pampering and TLC from time to time. If you haven't been making it a priority, and especially if you find yourself always energetically focused on giving to others, now might be a good time to focus on taking care of yourself. Sometimes it is hard to be good to ourselves without feeling guilt, but black truffle comes as a reminder that we must all set aside time for deliberate cocooning, meditation, or introspection, or other forms of self-love. Nice.
That card.
Yeah, I love that description.
Right?
I think
That deck is freaking bad.
yeah, that aligns. I've been reading this book called Food Energetics. Just talking about the consciousness behind different foods, and trying to also use different foods to manifest then the kind of life I want, the kind of personality I want. So I'm like wondering where I could go get some black truffles now. So that's awesome. And that I think that's actually really interesting to include that into unique nutrition, because as I briefly mentioned before, I'll eat different foods during different times of the month to aid with my hormones, or so. That's what they write in these female health books, but they never tell you why. And so I've been going deeper to learn, well, why am I being told to eat this at this time?
Right.
And I think knowing the meaning behind it, like having black truffles would be a great time to have that right now, or even in the menstrual phase of it's time for self-care, for resting, luxury, and sensuality.
Yeah. That would be that queen energy too, that queen of what was it? Wands, queen of fire. Yep. Nice. And the moon, really.
The pleasure really speaks to me of we learn about the pleasure. There's a pleasure course that I completed through the Center for Integral Wisdom, and just the overview of the people want to learn. So pleasure has principles, and pleasure is a skill. and we get the first level of pleasure for free, which is the pleasure of our senses. And every level has a functional aspect and a counterfeit. So level 1 would be like the level of the senses, and the counterfeit would be you're stopping to notice newness from habit, and it's like you're thinking that yesterday is today. And so the price for that is the attention. That's the price. So the practice is attention. So reclaiming sovereignty over your own goes back to intention and attention. But that's that self-care, the coherence in us as water. And then we move to level 2 pleasure, which is affection, love, relationships. That ties back in with the Four of Hearts. And so the counterfeit would be like the infatuation, right? So we don't actually see the child or the person. It's like narcissistic absorption, all the codependency. I can't be alone. There's different ways that's exiling love to be number 1 an emotion, number 2 a human emotion, being infatuation, number 3 limiting it to one person, number 4 demanding that it lasts forever, 5 breaking the pleasure circuit when it doesn't last forever, and then 6, if it doesn't last forever, I think that love has quote unquote failed.
Right.
So the price for level 2 pleasure is the curiosity and forgiveness, giving up being right, commitment, which is basically maintaining lifelong curiosity, and a practice for level 2 pleasure would be like studying the laws of love, discerning between outrageous love and ordinary love, integrate curiosity and kindness, tenderness, autonomy for yourself. Level 3 pleasure would be like standing up for a cause, so being productive, meaningful work, pleasure in incarnating a value. The counterfeit for level 3 pleasure would be like I'm busy, and if I'm not busy, then there's something wrong with me. It's like a false cause. They can't identify something they're willing to die for, and thus they're already dead. So the practice there is cultivating discernment and getting clear on what you're ready to die for, and then living for it all the way in this lifetime. So it's the willingness, it's the pleasure of honor, and discerning between external and internal obligation. Am I conditioned from a reward punishment system, of external rewards, that I'm either going to get the sugar or the whip to motivate me to do something, or is this an internal obligation arising as in I recognize reality desired me so much that she created me, and she created you and everyone else listening, and that internal unique self obligation. Level 4 pleasure would be knowing your true nature. That's the gnosis, the wisdom, and or what is also called true self. Recognizing that there's a seamless code of the universe, and so the counterfeit for that would be like spiritual bypassing and all the enlightenment dogma that says you got to move beyond your story and avoid working on separate self issues or your shadow. So the practice is basically being ready to be uncomfortable and give up the separate self. Contemplation, meditation, chanting, ecstatic prayer, feeling into sacred moments of birth, deaths, weddings, sacred nature mysticism. Those would all be practices to connect with the seamless code of the universe. Level 5 pleasure would be creatively, uniquely mediated through reality, having a you experience. So this is level 5 pleasure is the pleasure of unique self. So it's the pleasure is the byproduct of living your story. your unique way of bringing joy to the field radiate in the field by showing up as yourself, no matter what. And the counterfeit expressions for that would be like, I'm more special than everyone else, or the um, Course in Miracles or Eckhart Tolle kind of spiritual bypassing, where it's like, I got to give up my story to, this is just the ego talking. So they not discerning between specialness and uniqueness, and seeing that specialness is not a spiritual detriment. Having the thought and believing indefinitely in a rigid way of I'm more special than you, that's what can be dysfunctional. But everyone's special, everyone's unique, and we have a birthright to own our story. So the practice is to feel your inner artist, and recognize your devotion and seeing other people's specialness and uniqueness, answering the question, what does reality need and desire from me in the next moment? And level 6 pleasure would be like evolutionary unique self, which is the force of allurement itself, participating in the evolution of love and living in an evolutionary context. And so the counterfeit for that pleasure, the pseudo pleasure for level 6, would be the abuse of power, getting intoxicated with power, failure to discern from power over, power under cycles. And the price is basically, the practice is giving up the false power game, giving up the win-lose metric, success, failure, illusion, and just stepping in alignment with your unique self, recognizing that's the source of your dignity and your prosperity that you're looking for, and giving your unique gifts no matter what happens in the world, even if it's a global psyops, we can still maintain the coherence as water, as us. So those are the 6 levels of pleasure that align with that. I like that pleasure.
Nice. Interesting. It's interesting too because of the oracle cards that Caitlin got with we got the alchemy to start, which is like transmuting, right? And then, which I would say that's where we've kind of been. And then now it feels like we definitely stepped into that 3 beginnings and we are probably looking still at that transformation and pressure aspect. It kind of feels like that.
Right. Yeah, it does.
Interesting.
Transmuting.
That's what mushrooms do too. They turn all the dead stuff into water.
Right. Paul Stamets bringing all that. I forgot which mushroom it was specifically, but didn't they have like an oil spill outside of San Francisco, and he had that solution, and they just put the mushrooms on it and completely ate all the oil and just transmuted it, cleaned it up.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember which one it was, but supposedly he has done that. Yeah, I guess they can do everything. You can grow hats out of it and make all sorts of medicines. That's where all the medicines supposedly come from, I think. Aside from the other plants, obviously. So.
Yeah, I say something about mushrooms. I love them. I think they're awesome. And I'm just saying, like, I was reading the book Eat Right for Your Blood Type, the Blood Type O edition, because that's my blood type. And, he said to not eat mushrooms as blood type O. And I'm just thinking, like, especially after learning what the black truffle mushroom is, self-care. I got Gate 27. Shadow of Gate 27 is not practicing self-care, taking care of others before I care for myself. And I'm just saying, like, this guy, he wrote it back in 2001, hasn't been updated. What was his perspective? What was his worldview? And if I die, well, I will die, but when I die and I go to my end of life review, if they say to me, like, this is where you went wrong, Caitlin, you had mushrooms and it was not good for your blood type, I'm gonna look them right in their eyeballs and I'm gonna tell them, next life you give me, mushrooms is gonna be beneficial for my blood type.
You know, they're
So,
interesting. If you're, I think the way I see, I can understand when you get to the esoteric aspect of that, because when I've done mushrooms, you're definitely connecting with a very, very big being. Like you're in agreement. You're like basically adjusting your ratio to partake in their system. So it is definitely um, integrating like a different elemental being into your body, so to speak. At least that's how I would put it.
Yeah, the Earth's nervous system, the mycelium, just
Yeah,
like in the Mario Brothers film.
but it is 100%. It runs on love. Like it runs on tremendous love is the best way to describe it. Like it operates on
red
that.
type book, why are you telling me to avoid mushrooms of any kind? I'm not gonna avoid love of any kind.
Yeah, if
Right.
when
I
you
think
should
that's
always just
interesting.
ask a question when someone tells you not to do something, because that's the first thing I want to do when you say that. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
good
let's
point.
see.
I'm
How do
not
you
Not
too
know what my unique
surprised.
experience is? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think those diets, like these nutrition books, will homogenize. Unique experience. That's a great point,
And
Barry. Yeah, it's the nutrition books will homogenize, and then it can even reinforce. Like, I've felt it myself of feeling guilt of like I was told that this is not good, or optimal for my body, but my sacral says yes. So then there's
Right.
this dissonance between my brain's like, no, don't do this, but my sacral's like, calm down. This is outrageous love incarnate. We're gonna eat it.
There you go.
It's like, so where are the books that talk about that? You know, I guess I'll write one.
Well, Terrence McKenna tells you that a lot. He says it takes courage, and if I've offered those experiences to people before, and they'll say like, "Oh, I'm not ready," or like they'll just no thanks and stuff. And it's like the ones that say I'm not ready, it's like, but you don't even like. That means in some capacity you know what it is, or like I don't understand how you would uh, but like I say, it takes courage, especially to do some substances. It takes a lot of courage,
Would
and
say
you're
it takes a
rewarded.
certain, I think it takes a certain worldview for them to even be open to the possibility. Like I even see certain people types being like psychonauts.
Yeah.
It's either in their imprint or it's not.
Yeah, could be.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of people who just destroy. I mean, if you have a like a world consciousness and like you're excited for your Grey's Anatomy show coming up this week, and I mean it's gonna hurt you. Like if you were to, it's just gonna you're gonna instantly see it. You're gonna see what you are, and it's gonna, I don't know. There's
You'll
times in
start
my
to
life.
see again. Your eyes will hurt because you're seeing.
Hmm. And it can hurt your own self during that self-reflection process, which it's pain at first, but it spawns into, you know,
Yeah.
health and true health and wealth, because wealth is health. I mean, think about it. What's the biggest joke running here is it doesn't really matter how much money you have. You can't pay somebody to go run a couple miles for you, right? Like you're just going to have to do that with your own sweat and will. Like there's things that money can't buy all over the place here. Courage, I mean, just tons of stuff. And those are the real, prizes of this system, the things to hold, and it's a, I just laugh, I mean, it's people it's a just it can be a destroyer, it can be a big destroyer. That's why I'm really careful about who like I'm willing to take mushrooms with, because I don't know if I play
Right.
healer the whole time. Like I might want to have my
Right.
own unique experience. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's a neat
So
field.
basically doing an assessment, you know, and also recognizing, Todd, that the people's responses, that it's not, you're not talking to them, you're talking to a worldview, talking through them.
Oh
Mhm.
You
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
and also that their unconscious or shadow is, you know, somehow coming through and being like, you know, there can be a form, I think, of unconscious shadow self-sabotage where, you know, the opportunity to get in touch with the seamless code of the universe is right in front of them, but the shadow frequency is just so bright in all of their design that they're like, you're like the devil right now.
Uh,
Yeah.
it'll just, yeah,
Can
it'll
they
just go.
tell you? Can they tell you why they're not ready versus I'm not ready? If they could tell you why, because maybe they can already connect to the seamless code of the universe, and they don't
That's
need mushrooms.
well, my reason has always been like for me, I'm at a threshold where something like DMT or ayahuasca, like those are things I haven't tried yet, and I'm apprehensive. And for me, my personal thing, I like to say, well, I'm not ready. And then why am I not ready for something like that? For me, it's personally that I don't know if I want to experience the almost height of bliss that I can here because it would make me it would almost make the world that I'm in right here painful to be in because I know there's this beautiful
Uh-oh.
comfortable spot. It'd be healing too. I couldn't have that experience and be like, look, now you know this is here. And these are some realms I feel like I've gone to without it, just because obviously DMT's and everything, and it's you know it's every blade of grass. So I mean, it's you can trigger things inside of you unknowingly, and things happen. So it's
Right.
a for me, it's a hesitancy. There's fear in there on it of not wanting because you can't go back, I guess, and change the fact that you put something in you or didn't. And I know in other lifetimes I probably have, so that's like another area I'm at with it. Like, well, that's just this life, Pete. How do you know what you've done in other lives? Like, it's not like, even if I was a non-smoker my whole life right now or something, how do I know I didn't abuse tobacco in my last life and I haven't
Yeah.
put this in my design code and I carry it with me? You know, it's so hard to see
Yeah,
it.
I think it's stage appropriate, like basically state and stage, you know, because often a lot of people confuse those, they're separate things. So depending on where one's unique stage of development is in their state of consciousness, which is
Mm-hmm.
horizontal, not vertical, well,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's all about personal strategy. So if we can get beyond the, you know, right and wrong way of doing something and just say that this is something someone desires, and
Mm-hmm.
I can also see when I heard you say, you know, the hesitancy. What I've noticed with a lot of quad rights who have that their tone and their design, which is all the arrows by the body graph, um, are quad right, all going to the right. That we don't need it because it's already, we're already in a psychedelic state, far as orienting and seeing and perceiving reality. What I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed is that people who have more left orientation, which is like strategic, the very left brain,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even in the culture, the people that need to go to ayahuasca ceremonies in California or Costa Rica, or even the DMT thing is like, and sometimes it's mostly they have a generator component in their design, in their human design, where they need something that strong as a roto rooter to clean them out because it's not a natural state for them. So I think the openness centers in the designs and the tone in the design contributes of, you know, different strategies to try to get what we were talking about, which really comes down to the clear perception. And just like how there can be spiritual bypassing and religious bypassing, there can be psychedelic bypassing. And I've seen this over and over in sessions where clients have had a ayahuasca experience, and you know it was all, they're all excited about it before, and then they go do it, and again it's all unique to each person and what kind of self-care rituals they have for coming down after that, because the extreme in the change of state is extreme. And so if they don't have something to balance them out when they come back in to a
Yeah.
different state, then it's gonna be hard to balance. And so what happens is that, and this is in Body Talk, we learned this in Body Talk through the traditional Chinese medicine courses, is that it will blast the crown chakra open. It will basically like rape force the crown chakra open when it's not ready naturally to unfold. And so what happens is that the root chakra gets completely off balance, and they're like the space cases, or they're like, it's really hard for them to ground. So I've had clients who've done ayahuasca, I've had clients who've smoked, the newest version of DMT, and the pattern stays the same. We end up balancing their chakras or something because the Sushumna got, and it throws off the Vivaxis too, which is the energetic cord connected to the earth. So there's a lot of things in the vital body that can get, just because the psychedelics, it's like, okay, on a conscious level, we're giving permission, but are we getting permission from the body? And is the body at a frequency level even prepared to take on this high surge of a state change, right? Because I've done, LSD and MDMA combined, and I knew how to preload and also how to balance myself when I came out. So there wasn't an extreme thing, but then I've heard people who have done the same thing or take MDMA, and they have a huge, flood of serotonin, they have a change of state in their mind, and then they come back to their life that they need to go back into, relationships, work, whatever, and the contrast is just so extreme that it's a very challenging for them to cope, right? And
Yeah.
try to be like, how do I actually even integrate this and ground it and root it back in? So that connects to the truffles thing of like, have a set up system and your roots and your self-care things that actually work to help you balance and come back in, and that's all was talked about with Timothy Leary and the whole, set and setting. It's all about that, but it's also, can the frequency of your body actually mutate and transduce these changes that will be so extremely implemented in a very short duration of time?
Right. How can you
Yeah.
ground this? Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
can.
think.
Yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Todd.
Oh.
Okay, then. Um, I just this for me this connects back to unique nutrition. I personally identify nutrition as more than food. It's like information that you choose to put into your body. So knowing your unique self and what your needs are at that time, checking in with your inner authority, which I also refer to as unique self authority. That was my point.
Nice. Yeah, that's I really like your perspectives on that, Nathan. That's well, one thing is funny, you were talking about I don't know. It resonated with my opinion of DMT experiences. It's like Drano for your bullshit and like everything in general. Almost, it's just
You
like,
get the rooter real
like
fast,
yeah, the roto rooter, yeah.
or
But
the
that
snake that goes into a drain to clean out all the hair and the gunk. It's like it's like, Hunter S. Thompson, buy the ticket, take the ride. You don't get
right.
to check it out, so they got to have some game plan to be able to integrate the shadow, because the shadow is going to come up for the separate self they take psychedelics. There, we need to have things in place of, 3-2-1 journaling process, big mind voice dialogue, body talk, different things to integrate the shadow. Otherwise, they try to we can't figure it out by ourselves. This is the thing. We need
Wow.
we need, well, we can get insights, but if we don't have context of the larger framework, then it's kind of like we're just kind of in this mini golf land of playing, and what are we actually doing?
Well, I think the experience and who you are will trigger that, though. A lot of people do these experiences with the wrong mind states, the wrong atmospheres, the wrong substances, and then get totally distorted pictures too.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with that. So maybe the people that were reluctant at the time that you offered the invitation needed more clarity of like what is the desired outcome look like, how what is, what is the step by step, even though it's unique, like having some, this is what you might expect, this is what would help afterwards, an
yeah.
ongoing. Because I've eaten a lot of LSD. Like I'm an experienced psychonaut. I've gone to the other side. I've seen the green matrix lattice.
I still see that.
Yeah,
I
and
see
it's
that if I
it.
smoke weed now, actually, I can see the fractal, whatever it is. Yeah.
So it's all there, and at some point it's like, okay, it's there, and then what are we gonna do about it? How do we bring our unique perspective and those gifts into something that's gonna benefit those around us and benefit humanity,
You know how
right?
I
Because
do it, though?
yeah,
I just cherish it. I'm like, I love it. I love seeing that stuff. I love seeing weird stuff. I absolutely love it. Like, I have like
and it
a
translates in
cinematic
your art.
view. I'm
It
sorry.
translates in your art though. It like
Sure.
it's coming out, and that's your unique gift, and it's your outrageous love. When I look at your art book, and we've looked through it a few times, it's right here. It's like, yeah, we see that unique perspective. So it's almost like um you're able to, and but this is my thinking, you're able to think crystallize the experiences into just beauty, in artwork,
Mm.
because I feel it's psychoactive, right? And you could tell when you look at psychedelic artwork, or
Yeah.
listen to somebody giving a talk while they're Tim Leary, or Terrence McKenna. You're getting that state change by just listening or looking at it.
Yep.
From my view, like I can get a feel of it, like, wow, this is what I remember, because I have a reference point in my mind, in my water, in the field of my experiences. So I'm like, oh yeah, that was. And there's inspiration, so I can look at your art, I can be inspired, but I don't have to go on, some
Right.
7-hour journey. If I like.
Yeah. That was sort of the intention, was to try to make something. First of all, the book's kind of starts in it like a psychedelic trip, and ends like a psychedelic trip.
Yeah, it's
And the
beautiful.
idea is that like there are people that won't try these substances, and just to be clear, like I'm never gonna force anyone to do a substance, like ever.
Yeah.
Like it's 100% you. I just like the Christ. You got to come to it. In my opinion, if you want to get the real effects of what these things are, like well beyond hallucinations, like it's something entirely unique. So,
And their
um,
invitations are strong.
you think so? Yeah, I suppose.
I mean,
I don't
'cause
know.
I'll have it come to mind
I
and
think it
be
depends on
like,
the
hey,
culture where you
or
are.
the allurement, I guess. If
Sure.
we have a template for it already, it's like that
Yeah.
allurement is like, hey, and then you got the choice at that point of like, I remember.
Yeah. And it's good to know too, like just small doses of mushrooms are like, I think in considering all the crazy shit people put in their body with by pharmaceuticals and shit, like literally just having a couple mushrooms at least once in your life is probably going to be tremendously beneficial for you, and it's always friendly to newcomers. Like
Mm.
you will feel like, or you should have some just waves of real, like, love's a good word for it, but it's just like tremendous acceptance, and like that's just uh, if you're taking supplements or you're like going on a special diet, it's like just this one experience like will literally do so much help for most people, I really think. And
Mhm.
you know
Yeah, I
so
agree.
So it
Love's
sounds
new.
like one of your hows, Todd, is psychedelics, because it's like your verb. It's what you do that brings your why to life.
yeah,
And it.
oh well, yep. I knew you were talking a little bit about some people like they need that. For me, it was life saving. Like absolutely. Like I tried alcohol and I would drink like a 6 pack a night, and to me that's a ton of. I know I've met people that say that's like a starter, and I'm like, holy hell! Like that was a lot for me, and I was so frustrated because I was under the stipulation of the legality problem, and like you can't just buy it at Amazon or the store. And when I tried cannabis, I was like, and I tried it, not in a party setting, like just smoked it and like sat down. It's like, holy hell, like it's so good. Like it feels amazing. Like I don't have, and then the next day you're fine. You don't have a headache. You don't feel that slow drip poison of alcohol, like, and that drag that I feel it creates. But like, um, and I was like, well, how is this illegal? Like, and that like woke me up to so many things. Um, but yeah, to each his own for sure.
For
um, we're pushing 3 hours. I'm about good. I don't know. How are you guys feeling?
I feel inspired hearing your view of the psychedelics, and that would be some interesting next conversation because we've all had our journeys and
Sure.
I'm just saying, Todd, if you were a guide, I would seek you out. I was looking at your book as you were talking about this too.
Oh, nice. Thanks.
That was really nice. No, pleasurable for me to look at your images while hearing your voice and be like, oh my gosh, that's the father of this book talking right now. I feel like I'm in the presence of a celebrity.
Oh, jeez. Well, I don't mean this to be egotistical, but I have had a lot of reckoning with the idea of needing to be more public, so to speak, in order to be beneficial to people and spread my art because.
You have to. You're a manifesting generator. It's about the impact you can have on people. Like, you have this expansive aura. It is correct for you to impact a large number of people with your gifts.
Right, yeah.
I
So
second that. I support that.
thanks. Yeah, this year I've done a ton of that, which has been a lot. I'm getting stronger at it too because of been doing it a lot. And it does burn me out though, so it ends up where I do have to pay attention to the aspects of self care. Like I do have to take it. Yeah, and even like art, like believe me, I want to do art every day, and that's my kind of goal. But I also get burnt out on that, and like sometimes I just have to, just go for a walk or do literally nothing, because I don't know, it's an energy thing. But yeah, thanks. I really appreciate the support. So it means a lot to me, and
Welcome. Yeah, wasn't the truffle card the cocoon? Is that mentioned? Wasn't that mentioned there? Cocoon?
it was about, yeah. I mean, that was one of the words in regards to cocooning and meditation for self care. Yeah, absolutely. hmm Nice. It all comes together once again.
Yeah, killer episode, guys. Awesome job.
Yeah, a lot of weaving. Gift of weaving together.
Yeah, absolutely.
What number? Are we on 25? 4, 3? I don't know anymore.
Episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, 25, I believe.
57.
It's a good number. One quarter of a century.
Oh, no, man. C-note. It's coming. 50, we'll do a Jubilee episode.
Oh, yeah. Jeez. All right, well, let's wrap it up. Go ahead and say goodbye, everybody, and I'll sign us off.
Yeah, season.
Enjoy your rest.
Enjoy your pagan holiday today.
Eat some mushrooms.
Eat mushrooms. It likes newcomers.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Give your unique self and unique gifts and unique perspective to the world, no matter what.